Thanks. Okay, thanks. We're live.
Okay, we are live. Good morning, everyone. It is the 10:30 a.m. Wednesday, March 11th, Urban and Economic Development Committee meeting. And I'm Councilor Bellis chairing this meeting. First item on the agenda, I call this meeting to order. Second item on the agenda, Renita Bolin, appointment to the HUD Community Development Committee, filling a vacant seat. Term expires June 30th, 2027 from Council District 6 is Renita. Oh, great. You want to come up to the table?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Here you go.
Wonderful. You can take a seat anywhere.
Sorry, there you go.
If
That bias that she sat next to me.
Yes. If you wouldn't mind telling us a bit about yourself and why you're interested in serving in this role.
Well, I am was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Worked there my entire career. I worked for Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors for 24 years. And in that capacity, I served several, I was appointed on several positions, including supervisor's deputy, office manager, administrator. My most recent experience, I did work with the community a lot. Everything from case management to director over certain departments and everything. I have so much experience. I'm just trying to think what it is that you would like to see. But I served from, I think, senior secretary 5 to office manager to deputy to office administrator. And in those positions, I actually worked with the community a lot, from hands-on, grassroots, serving, taking complaints, liaising with the departments to resolve those complaints, and more recently, as I was in charge of operations for Justice Care and Opportunities Department, where I helped to facilitate community meetings and set up, I'm trying to say, I'm sorry, a little nervous here because I am. Okay, well.
We don't bite.
Oh, well, I'm sure. I really want to do this because I feel like I have a lot of experience working with the community. I've done everything from handling budgets, contract management, RFP processes, facilitating, and I really wanted to talk about the Justice Care and Opportunity Department, where Measure J, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but they had to take existing funds from law enforcement agencies to serve justice-impacted individuals and their families, and especially those that are marginalized and don't really know about the services. And so we did have to facilitate numerous community meetings to receive input from the communities, and to see where those services should be directed and things like that. So I had to facilitate or procure venues, equipment, behind the scenes, and also note-taking, just like I said, everything that I like to fill in where the gaps are. And because we started this from scratch, I did have to do a lot of the, or handle a lot of the assignments until we were at capacity and hired other people. So everything from hiring staff to training them and so forth. So anyway, since I retired and I've been to Oklahoma over the past, my husband and I will be celebrating 40 years this year, married, and he's from Oklahoma, so we've come back to vacation here all the time, and I loved it and everything, and so I still have family here, and now that we've purchased a home here, I'm all over the place. I'm not content to sit around just because I'm retired. I am involved in the community, in my church. I volunteered over 30 years in the church and everything. So I just feel like I have a lot to offer, and am looking forward to, if appointed, helping our community in whatever way possible.
Councilor Dr.
I just wanted to say, it sounds like you're a super volunteer, and you're probably going to be like most who retire and do more than before, which you all just described at the city of Los Angeles seemed like a lot. So thank you for your willingness to serve. I'm also a transplant, and I think it's great to have a variety of perspectives.
Right.
I just did want to ask, have you worked specifically with HUD voucher-based community?
I did not. I have to say the closest I came to working with housing was to help with those reentry services and things like that, where the people who had been incarcerated before our program, when we weren't able to divert, then we worked with the providers who provide services or housing,
Sure.
things like that.
I think that's gonna, I mean, we have the highest rate of incarceration, one of the highest, and it's definitely, reentry and housing is an issue in our state and certainly our community, so I think you'll have a valuable lens to bring to that, and I'm just appreciative of your willingness to serve.
Thank you. And I do have to say, as a deputy to the county supervisors, I was able to connect people who had problems with housing to those departments like our housing authority, but not actually working where I
Sure.
facilitated it.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
Oh my gosh.
Kevin Canfield.
Just make sure you call out publicly. I think I had Councilor
I was just
Hoffer.
gonna say thank you for your willingness to
oh,
serve.
thank you,
Yes.
thank you.
Councilor Bengal.
Well, Shella Bowen sat in this seat previously, so obviously they share a name. That's not coincidence. So this seat has been vacant. I thought for some reason you went through the process, and I thought that for some reason. And so I'm glad that you decided to take this on. I'm really grateful, because this is a seat that definitely needs to be filled, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Feather, did you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, highly qualified, and I really appreciate that. And if there's anything you would like from the council, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Okay, great, great.
Okay, so we will be voting on this in our March 25th, 5 o'clock meeting.
Okay.
You are welcome to attend that, but you do not have to.
Okay.
But thank you so much for your time with us today. We
Okay,
really
awesome,
appreciate it and your willingness to
awesome.
serve, of course.
I had so much to say, but.
Well, wait, is there,
like I said-
hold on, do you have a big thing? If you have something else that needs to be on the record, you still got a mic.
Oh, only that, I feel like I'm a quick study. I like to learn even now, and I need to be busy and productive and everything. So I feel that whatever position I might be appointed to, that I will bring a lot to the table. Not
Thank
to
you
brag on myself, I just know that I love to help and I love to work in the community. I know.
Oh,
Very qualified.
Councilor Dutton.
Yeah, I just want to say as a senior myself,
Mhm.
over 65, that I can appreciate the idea after you retire to add purpose
Right.
to your life.
Right.
And being a contributing member in a purposeful way is so meaningful.
Yeah.
And so grateful for
I'm
that.
excited, I'm excited.
Grateful.
Thank you so much. Again,
Thank
this will
you.
be on for the March 25th, 5 o'clock meeting. Thank you for your time today. All right, we're on agenda item 3, Yadika Starfields, reappointment to the Tulsa Arts Commission. I don't know if I see him here.
It's an emergency.
Oh, no, so we'll reschedule.
reschedule.
Okay, we are rescheduling. All right, item 4, license agreement between the City of Tulsa and Savannah Spavana Telephone Company for the property located at 439 Road and 4365 Road, Pryor, Oklahoma, to install a 4-inch PVC duct and fiber optic line underneath raw water flow lines in Mays County. Glamorous. Tell us
Very
more.
good. Paul Zachary, Public Works. We have large right-of-way. City of Tulsa owns property all the way out to the lakes. And this has our two supply water lines, one a 54, one a 66 inch water line. We do have, we cross several section line roads as we go across the counties and across as we get to the lakes. But along this road, along North 439 Road, which is a section line road in Mays County, the Salina Spavanaugh Telephone Company is wanting to install a fiber optic line, and we have a standard established. They have to bore outside our property. They have to get 6 feet below at a minimum to the lines. And this is all in the backup if you want to look at it. But basically, we do identify the lines. Our flow line folks are out there with them during the boring operation, and they clear the bottom of our pipes by 6 feet, and then they come up out of our right-of-way on adjacent property. So they've signed, they've agreed, we've looked at their plans, and we have no objection to those. So we would recommend approval of this deal and let them make this fiber optic connection for the folks out in Mays County.
Any follow-up questions? Okay.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much.
Thank you.
All right, we are on agenda item 5. Ordinance declaring a 365-day moratorium on the acceptance of applications for, processing of, and issuance of building permits that would allow construction on or use of property for data center use located in the City of Tulsa, providing for an exception and an appeal process, providing effective and repeal dates. This item has the emergency clause. I put it on the agenda. Oh yeah, I have a few things in backup that I'll go through, but we can keep this really discussion-based. And I'll name up front that this does have an exemption in it for Project Anthem, since that's something that's already been thoroughly, processed through our city hall with a contract signed by the mayor's office in 2024. So what I'm seeking to do here, and then why with this proposed moratorium, is allow our planning office time to go through a very thorough research phase that we had already initiated in looking at the zoning. As mentioned, when we initiated that kind of zoning research, all data centers right now are under industrial light. And we know that hyperscale ones have been proven across the country to have off-site impacts, especially related to noise and vibrations, especially like infrasound, which you may not always actually detect or hear yourself, but your body can physiologically acknowledge. The National Institute of Health says that it can cause significant and often kind of both physical and psychological effects on people because it can raise cortisol levels, it can lead to cardiovascular issues, et cetera. And so there's just a lot of consideration to make sure that we have appropriate zoning, appropriate space between these types of hyperscale facilities and private residences or areas where we intend to have more residential housing. And so just want to ensure we're being really mindful and allowing time to make sure we get that zoning accurate before we're allowing more large-scale data centers to go in. I just want to ensure that we're being really thoughtful with that. I'll also name that we learned during our last council meeting, there was a public comment that, and I looked up on the news, that Cherokee Nations initiated a study which they're planning to, I think, have conducted by around June or July or so, and then be able to publicly share it in the fall. That'll show related to data center impact. And so there's just a few things here where I think we have the opportunity to slow down, be proactive. This is a very fast-moving industry, and I'm not trying to impede, what's, I think, ultimately going to be, a certain amount of economic development related to this, hence the exception for what Anthem had already submitted for and is in the process of. But I do want to make sure that we have our zoning in a place where we know that we're being responsible with development, especially as we strive to address our housing needs. And so would you actually mind pulling up the map if we can? What I did is I have, and I took some screenshots that are being passed out, and this is in the backup now. Apologies, it's taking a second to get the ArcGIS of this pulled together for folks to have now. And so this didn't go into the backup until a few hours ago. But there is, and I put a little tiny URL there if anyone wants to go in and look at it. What you're looking at is a map of places right now where data centers of size, whatever size and scale, can go in by right. And then the little green things are parks and nature areas. And then if you go through more, the second page of the document, so that's the by right area. Then the second page is by.
Wait, can you say that again?
I'm so sorry. So the first page.
The green dots are what?
Oh, those are parks and nature areas. I just was curious.
Okay.
So I asked for those to be shown in proximity.
And then where they could go is the red?
So the red is, those are all areas where those are zoned industrial light, and right now, by right, data centers can go in.
Okay.
Of whatever size and scale. If you go to the second page, this is showing where they can go by right or special exemption, and is adding in CH and CB zoning, and one other one I can't think of right now. So this is showing where they could go through a special exemption process and also go.
CHCG and CB.
Thank you. I was like, I'm missing a C. So I just wanted to kind of convey some of this. And then if you go to the next page, what I've done, and I tried to make sure you can see by area, this is where they can go by right, and all of the orange is showing you residential zoning just to convey some of the proximity. And I tried to kind of show this for various areas of our city. I do want to highlight here, for instance, you have a lot of areas, including ones that you don't see a lot of other maybe structures on, or there's kind of some large land mass around things that we're investing in otherwise, like Crutchfield Heights, or up by, let's see, or I'm looking over here, neighborhoods that we're heavily focused on in the Charles Page area, for instance, in my district. If you could go to the next page. You can see up here, this is right northeast Tulsa, where you have the heaviest like space or presence, and it makes sense over at the airport. But you can also see some of these other areas and corridors that really are abutting residential area, or areas where you could have residential growth. If you could go to the next page. You know, you can see, again, this is northeast, these areas that could end up having a lot of potential residential development where there's a lot of physical space. You could go to the next one. And then I had wanted to also highlight, let's see. Oh, this is the, yeah, still north, okay, this is still northeast. If you could go one more.
My district.
Yes, yeah, lots of northeast. And then this is,
My district.
yes, in District 7 where you can see some pretty potential areas. And if you could do one more. All right, this is showing some of that opportunity and space on the west side, especially right along the riverfront area. I think that might be the last page. Okay, so what I wanted to convey to you all through all this, you know, obviously land would have to be purchased. There's a lot of other parts and pieces. That said, all of the companies that are building data centers right now, they're moving quickly. This is a fast-moving industry. They are in competition with each other, and we are in competition with other countries to rapidly scale up AI infrastructure, and they have massive amounts of money to spend to do this work. And it's of their interest to build as many as they can as fast as possible, which that's of course the, you know, private industry, that's incumbent upon them to do as a company, so that makes all the sense in the world. I just wanna make sure that we're putting some of those safeguards in place for community members when it comes to appropriate zoning and land use. And right now, you can kind of see that with the current zoning situation, there's a lot of space for them to go in, a lot of places where, with what we know about hyperscale data centers today that we did not know 2 years ago when we first approved the TIF for Project Anthem, we probably wouldn't want these types of industry to go in those various locations. So I had wanted to share that, and then if you could, if someone could switch back to that article real quick, thank you. The other piece here that I want to highlight is, and it's been brought to my attention since this first went on an agenda, that the company, which I don't know what the actual company is, there's a contract with Atmos LLC, which is out of Delaware, which, right, people like to do LLCs out of Delaware because you don't have to put a public filing with a, you know, it doesn't require member or manager names. There's no state income tax, they don't conduct business, if you're not conducting business within Delaware, no sales tax, no tax on intangible assets, so, you know, anyway, so this company that is a contract, that's been contracted with for Anthem Phase 1 has more recently been making clear that they only want to build in multiples. When you look at what we had approved in 2024, it said for one data center, and we had asked some questions at that time, and, you know, at this table about impacts, noise, water, but if you had Googled data center at that time in 2024, not a ton of articles about data centers, not a lot of knowledge, you know, a lot more have gone in over time. We know so much more today than we did then, and I do think that due to our genuine interest as a community in economic development and opportunity, that we got taken advantage of with the deal that happened. And now they're saying that they wanted to put in, or they only build in sets of 2 or more. With the master plan development that we have on our 5 o'clock agenda today, that has space for further data centers. Maybe we're looking at 4 or 6. I have no idea. I know that sounds sensationalist, but we are creating that space, which there is a question of capacity. Again, I think, you know, we've already, as a community, made commitments to Project Anthem Phase 1, and I'm not trying to discount that, but I did want to highlight this article, which is in the backup for everyone, in which they did some analysis in Georgia that shows, one, most of the data centers that they provided incentives to come in would have gone in anyway, and that the public cost of doing that is, hold on, let me find, there's a data point, there's like some layers of research. Let's see, for every dollar that they incentivized, it's costing taxpayers like a certain amount of money back. I'll go find that stat in a minute. This is all just to highlight we offered a tax incentive for something that these are some of the richest companies in the world, and I think, you know, we did it, I question some of the return on investment we're getting, but I'm going to try to have faith in the analysis that we've done. But I just want to make sure, given how fast this industry is going, that moving forward, we are being as proactive and thoughtful as possible. And I think this pause could be very conducive to that. There was a bill put forward this session by Senator Kendall, let me know if I say this wrong, Secchieri, who's a conservative legislator out of Blanchard, Oklahoma, where she was proposing a 3-year moratorium on data centers for the whole state. I'm not coming to say anything like that here. And given the time it's taken from when we initiated the TIF for Anthem's, I guess, initial phase now, to today, they haven't, hit the ground running building something. So to me, a 365-day moratorium that gives us the time to get our zoning ducks in a row, hypothetically, given the pace that they've been moving, shouldn't actually necessarily impede future development or projects within a sensible, location zoning-wise. I'll stop monologuing for now. I just kind of wanted to lay out some of the case for why I'm proposing this pause so that we can be proactive and mindful. Councilor Dr. Wright.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this to us. I know a lot of constituents have been reaching out on all sides of this.
Gonna be famous.
I'll use my projected voice. The map is helpful. I just want to make sure I know what I'm looking at.
Yes.
So by right now, these are zoned where folks could come in.
Yes.
Small, medium, large.
Any size, because we have no clarification.
And the project that you're talking about out east is on ag land that has to go through rezoning.
So there's already, I think where the TIF is for the first phase, it's already zoned appropriately. When you look at the contract, it shows that.
It's a TID.
Oh, TID, I apologize. Where the TID is for the first phase, and this is in the contract too, that's already zoned appropriately. They are now asking for a second phase that does have to go through a rezone. That's in front of the Planning Commission next week.
Okay.
Likely to
And
be
that's
denied.
AG?
We don't know.
That's AG that needs
It's
to be
AG,
rezoned.
they're proposing IL, which IL is what we're also saying may not be appropriate zoning. We haven't had the time to
Well,
finish vetting
And
that.
that's the question I have here. These are IL or CH or both?
The first page is all IL.
Okay.
The second page, if you flip to the back of that page, shows the IL, CH, or both. I have some little labels at the top, but yeah. IL, the second page shows IL plus the added on areas that would have exemptions. You can go to this ArcGIS map and toggle between things and add the layers and remove the layers.
So I guess I'm trying to figure out, and I appreciate that you went all around the city and,
Yes.
I have that industrial triangle that right now has a lot of grow operations that get to go in by right, which then are creating nuisances for other existing businesses, and somehow we haven't figured out how
The
to
zoning
get on that 6-week cycle of when odor is escaping buildings. But it has caused some of the businesses in that corridor that were there for a very long time to have to leave, just on odor nuisances, not noise or anything else. How do we know on this, which ones are IL and which ones are by exemption? Or we need to look on the live?
So those ones are all, I think, just, the one you have screenshots of are just IL by right on
With
those
the yellow,
ones.
okay.
The yellow is residential. What you're seeing in red on
Yes.
those screenshots are just the IL
IL,
ones. It does not
okay.
have the other overlay.
I got you.
Yes.
So these are by right.
Those are all the by right
because they're
spaces.
IL right now.
Yes.
And then, of course, those of us with undeveloped ag, that's always open for redevelopment discussions pending approval in front of the
In front of the planning commission.
planning
yes.
commission. So I do
Yes.
think that we need to, there's enough precedent in other communities, I think we need to learn from. That they're ahead of us on this and they're now trying to reverse engineer some of the unintended consequences that have come with these decisions. Obviously, we have this commitment and you said there's a carve out.
Yes.
I think it is prudent to, because of how fast it's going, to look at best practices and look at it from a land use and also resource. I believe the stuff going on at the state is really around water and electricity.
Yes.
And other states are looking at like, yes, you can do your business here, but you can't pass those costs on to residential customers through these. And I haven't done a deep dive the way some of you all have, but it seems to me that some of that discussion is going on right now, that right now, PSO, I think, and maybe some others are asking for the cost to be spread across all customers, not the ones that are driving the high usage. And so I think we need to see how the session goes. while we also look in our own backyard about unintended consequences or creating overlays, I don't think the answer is no, but it might be like, it only makes sense to do it maybe in places that aren't densely residential or that don't already have other industries. I'm just gonna go back to cannabis.
We're requiring certain features
Yeah,
in custom
I'm gonna go back to
zoning.
cannabis. This corridor right here specifically on this page of my district used to be highly, highly oil and gas manufacturing and things. So those buildings have been there 30, 40, 50 years. As that cannabis industry came on, a lot of this building space was then converted to grow facilities or processing facilities. Totally legal, totally, industry came in. The existing businesses that are there now are being impacted by the new businesses because of nuisance odor. And we have repeatedly talked at this table, right? How you even enforce something like that. I've recently learned, because sometimes it's stronger, I don't know for those of you that drive the interchange, sometimes it's so strong that I'm explaining to my kids what that is.
That happens to me by Holly, I live near
Yes,
Holly
and I
Refinery,
think
so depending
it's,
on the
they're
wind.
like on a 6-week or 8-week grow and harvest cycle, and so then that's mass, like, production time. And when I lived near Gilroy, California, we would smell garlic in the same way, like downwind, but when it's cannabis, it is disruptive. And so we know with data centers just nationally, there's a lot of complaints about sound, vibration, those kinds of things. We had, you know, in my district, that long-term nuisance case on a nightclub that was vibrating people's homes.
Yeah.
And that was just
The
one
low
business
frequency
in an existing neighborhood on this map right here. So, you know, one nightclub was tormenting this block of residential, and it took us probably 10 years to finally get that taken care of. It looks like a data center could go right where that nightclub was eventually and cause maybe some of the same issues. So I do think we should be thoughtful about land use and maybe look at the comprehensive plan and look at those areas where we could potentially designate. And the other
course.
final thing I wanna say is Counselor Lakin and I did the town hall in October at Hardesty with Public Works, and there was a question about data centers and water. And I think Eric Lee had said in that meeting, we have capacity to take on 2
Right.
for the whole city, water capacity. Like he had stated that he felt that.
Can't remember the number.
I think it was
I've heard that
2,
before,
and I think he
yeah.
was saying like, we have capacity to take on 2 and not have it impact residential or others. Now,
And add to revenue as well.
Right. Because we could also sell our
Because
water
you
to
have
these closed
capacity
in the pipe.
systems. Yeah.
yes,
So you
and they
fill it
were,
up and
they were talking about there's new technology where
Right.
maybe they recycle that water for cooling, but they're not totally there yet.
Yes.
Yep.
But I remember that coming up as a point of questions from the public. And that Eric had mentioned, you know, beyond 2 probably didn't look like a thing that we as a community could take on, so.
With the current technology.
Right.
Yeah.
And
then I had-
capacity.
And the capacity.
Yeah, you counsel, oh, if you were still.
Yeah, Nancy Moran was there too and asked.
Okay.
Yeah. But
I was
yes,
just trying to remember.
yeah, and I think actually Counselor Dunn was there too, and you had a follow-up to that same
Yeah.
question to Eric.
Yeah.
So I think we were the 3 counselors that were in that meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, Counselor Dunn.
Yeah, so looking at this map is really showing that District 3 would be the predominant receiver of these data centers.
Possibly.
Yes, possibly. And I have received a lot of emails from constituents voicing concerns about that. Very close to parks, very close to ag, farming type land. There's also the quarry that's in our district, and it makes a lot of noise. I get complaints about that all of the time. And the fact that on this Project Anthem fact sheet, we don't see anywhere that includes cost to taxpayers on here. And incentives, I would like the breakdown of what the incentives are and the projected, in just a moment, yeah. What the projected incentives are, and if they also have data centers elsewhere, and what that looks like in those states that the data centers are placed. Also, there is no indication as to what it's actually gonna cost taxpayers in the form of PSO billing and possibly city utility costs. So I'm in agreement of a moratorium just until we can have all of the information necessary.
Well, and there are some projections of the
Well, I saw-
contract too. Well, that article, no, but I just need the
I-
actual contract with the
right.
city, which I know Counselor Bengal's really expert on, so I'll let him talk in 1 second. I do just want to add in as one quick note with the PSO cost and projections and potential state and federal laws about requiring them to really do, put in, cover their own and put in their own like source of power. One potential interesting kind of, which would be good, that would help offset costs to customers, so we're still seeing dramatic increases that absolutely parallel the rise of this industry and technology. Which one potential offset of that though, and this has come up recently, I think it's at maybe it's the Grok site in Tennessee where they've put in some really massive power generation on site because from the point of we're gonna generate our own and be responsible for that, but they're incredibly loud turbines that can, it sounds like an airplane taking off for all the nearby residents. That's been fairly reported on recently. Oh yeah, please
Yeah,
finish and then
so,
I'm missing Counselor
also,
Bingle.
yeah, because we also have the National Guard in the district, they send off 5 jets at a time, fighter jets at a time throughout the day. So there's a lot of noise factors that we're dealing with in the district. Also, projections don't mean actual costs and profits.
Right.
And so even though we might have projected costs and profits, we still don't know. And we saw that, I know this is a different issue, but we saw that with Canoe when they came into the state. And there were all these projections on profits and then they went under. And we put all of this money into them and just to have taxpayers lose investment funds from the state.
Yeah, I think Counselor Bengal,
Yeah.
for the point about the generation, I think that's his one page.
Yeah, it
So
is.
obviously I handed
Yes.
out this fact sheet to you. Obviously, through the LDARC process, you see the taxing entities that would benefit from that development. It is a TID, not a TIF. So this actually is in.
Can you explain the difference?
Huh?
Will you
Yeah,
explain the
so
difference?
obviously we're abating their ad valorem at 85% for 25 years. Now, to remind folks, this isn't Tulsa County, this is Wagner County. So the commissioner, James Henning, who sat on that LDARC, you had Tulsa Tech, I think, was part of that. I can't remember who the entire body was, but everybody at the table had input on whether this was a good deal or not. Now, because it was a TID versus a TIF, they're not getting any rebate on taxes. So they still have to pay their sales tax and everything associated with that. And that includes also the franchise tax and things of that nature and their usage. The thing for me specifically, right, because we've already leveraged an incentive, because in my view, incentives should only be used once, right? Because that's the intent of an incentive is you leverage it to create development in an area where it wouldn't naturally occur. So we've already leveraged the TIF. The expansion in and of itself is outside of that TID. So what I would, and I've been very vocal about this with Aaron, I've been vocal with this with Teo, that I would naturally be opposed to any additional incentives. Now, because this was in Wagner County versus Tulsa County, right, it's not affecting our county or us as a city at all, because it is a deferment of ad valorem. I totally agree with you 100% about the potential of putting a data center next to large subdivision. I totally, it's just nonsense to be doing something to this scale, right? Because we're talking about a 340 acre development versus something on a much smaller scale. I did say at the beginning when we went through this process that I felt like because this was an animal of its own, that we should create a zoning code specifically designated so that we could craft that zoning designation around that specific type of development, whether it was one of that large a scale versus ones that already pre-exist that most people don't even know
These
exist.
small ones, you wouldn't, they're downtown, you wouldn't
Right, they're
notice.
downtown and
Yeah.
most people don't know they're here. So I feel like we still need to go down that path and create that. This is why I was oppositional about sponsoring language regarding the noise ordinance. I used a cautious approach on this entire thing because I know what they do, and I know they don't manufacture anything or anything tangible that we can put our hands on. So I do know what they do, but I do know they're high revenue generators. And this is why I said, because of the loads that they do put on our infrastructures, I totally agree 100% that they should pay those costs. I will also tell you that Project Anthem, as we discussed last week, there's $75 million of infrastructure from the state and $50 million of ARPA funding, and then $25 million of Project Anthem is stuck in the ground on their own as part of their agreement. This is $75 million. I don't have to bond to the citizens for infrastructure. We now have development-ready property for that entire area. Now, I understand there are some concerns about ecological concerns. I totally grasp those 100%. But as I stated, I'm not an expert on frequency, propagation, and attenuation. I don't know what those look like. So those are the questions that do need to be answered, right, as far as noise. How we use the water, how the water's used, how it's returned, those are legitimate questions that should be answered. What I don't want to do, because this is a huge economic impact to our community and our city, this isn't next to a pre-existing subdivision, right? This is out on privately owned land that the owner has designated specifically for this as part of a much larger development. And this fact sheet shows you how much Project Anthem has stuck into this much larger development to create housing, to create green space, to create a huge park, to create a town center. They put a lot of investment in it. So even though they've done that,
Right.
they have gotten an incentive.
Right.
And that's why I'm not overly excited about going back and re-leveraging an incentive. But I do feel like this is something that we can leverage when we're talking about finding money for infrastructure, finding things for money for public safety. These are different revenue sources that we, at this table, have been talking about collectively. How do we fund things? And this is how you do it.
Well, and that's why I've exempted what we've approved already for Project Anthem in this. Like, I'm not trying, you're right, I'm not trying to undermine something we've already made a commitment to, and I'm not even, through this mechanism, trying in the long term to impede anything. I'm just making sure we get our, kind of zoning code ducks in a row, because per your point, we don't, it's just, not quite codified, right? So what are,
So my friendly
Yeah, give a friendly,
recommendation in
yeah.
this is, instead of doing a moratorium, that we put together, or that we create a working group to work with planning, Teo, and the developer to see how to create a zoning code specifically surrounding data centers.
we could do that. I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do. We already have the planning office
But
doing
what
that
I
research.
don't want to do is stall a development that's in progress.
Why would this, I've exempted Project Anthem, why would that stall this?
Well, because there's an expansion.
So, yeah, just to surface to everyone, Project Anthem, whoever that is, Atmos, LLC, whatever
I don't
company.
even know who it is.
No, but the news always says Meta, but I don't know. They have said that they now no longer want to just build one thing, that they only build in multiples. They want at least 2 to 4, and that if they, here's my 2 or 3 things here. One, so now they're trying to move forward with more. That's in front of the Planning Commission next week. That may not be approved. We don't know at which point, so we do have it. I want to name, this is on this week. Next week, we don't have a council meeting. That will be in front of the Planning Commission. I don't know what the planning office is going to recommend. We don't know what's going to happen there. And then we'll be back, we can put this back on, of course, committee the following week before, and
So this
vote
may
on.
be a moot point.
It could be moot, but I do want to name, I think they've done a bit of a bait and switch here, where we put forward good faith things. When I look at what we actually did, it said for what came through this table in 2024 said for a data center. Granted, when you look at the contract that the mayor's
I don't think
office,
that was the intent, Laura.
okay,
It wasn't a bait and switch. So the expansion only happened, or the expansion request only happened because the property owner to the west sold
okay.
their property
But
to
now
it. Is
they're,
that not correct?
but now they're saying they only, okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, so
Granted,
this
though,
wasn't, and this was not
Okay.
that where they go, well, we only do this in pairs.
Well, I mean, now they are
Yeah.
saying that.
Well, if Anthem is Meta.
No, I've been told by our economic development officer, sorry, Erin Persley, yeah, if you don't mind coming to the
Yeah,
table.
come to the table.
I'm gonna say three things, and Erin's probably never gonna talk to me on the phone again when I say this. One, he let me know that, that they have made clear that they would prefer to do 2 to 4, and our city's been like, we're gonna stop you at 2. However, with, if they bought up land or property owner rights, they could do more. I don't really know what it looks like for us to codify that otherwise, but I do think it's worth having the space to give pause. He also let me know, like, Erin, and it was like, that, when you can actually see in our contracts, it goes, one contract related to this in 2024 is signed by, I think, then Deputy Mayor Kasha Carr and other folks, and then Erin Persley came in the next week and got to sign the next one. So he came in a week after he made his commitment, and has been clear with me that, like, where he was coming from in Kentucky, they actually had a policy to not provide incentives to data centers that predates, like, the current era or that being on the table. Like, it's not necessarily maybe a best economic practice, but here we are. That's why I was like, well, let's exempt this to honor our commitments. But I think what we can now know in retrospect, despite all of our best intentions, is, compared to what we see some of these companies put in for other communities or offer other communities, I feel that they took advantage of us, and now they're saying we want to do this other phase, and I really value what Councilor Bengel's saying, like, hey, I don't want to put forward more incentives. Erin mentioned to me maybe they should be small ones, but if this is,
Counselor,
yeah.
I just want to reiterate,
yeah,
when you say take advantage of us,
We
it's not
gave-
us, it's Wagner County.
Well,
it's our
our-
community.
it's
Right, I get that, I get
Oklahoma,
that.
it's
They-
But this proposal has nothing to do with one entity, right?
No, this is about,
Okay.
I'm just naming,
Let's,
Can I-
I
yes,
feel like we need to.
refocus, that's
Since-
fair.
Since I was
The
mentioned,
first
can
one.
all in.
I
Yes,
speak short since I was mentioned?
Of
to
course.
Clarify some things?
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Please do.
So, yes, the current move for the Anthem project is to have 2 phases in their project. So yes, their 1 and 2 are tied. So if we don't have Anthem 2, Anthem 1 may not go through. My opinion is that if we're going to support Anthem 1, you have to do 2 because it makes sense to carve out something for 1 and not do 2, because the project dies either way if you don't do 2.
Why?
They're connected together. So the way their model works is that they need the 1 and 2 facilities together. And if we don't have 2 facilities together, then 1 doesn't work. I don't know the background of how that works. That's not my area of expertise. But it's been confirmed to me that 1 and 2 operate together because of changes that were made after we had the first agreement. I too initially thought it was a bait and switch project. I've come to see that it was not. It's just this is the way
It's just what
the
happened.
business is going
Okay.
right now. The model has changed and how they do data centers
Yeah.
for this particular company. So having said that, as the Economic Development Director, officer, what's important to me is that once we develop smartly and develop well, right? And not make quick and rash decisions. I think what you're doing is good. Let's look at how it works. But I would like for us to take a step back, maybe table this, bring in experts around the table, have a full-on conversation before we make any decisions moving forward on a moratorium or not. And maybe we still get to that level of that decision. But I would really like to take the time for us to all have a discussion with everyone around the table, PSO, other people, to say, okay, this is what a data center really is. Here are the real impacts of a data center, and talk those things through and have you ask those professionals questions directly to get the right answers and not to make decisions based on kind of what we think
The
or what we read.
moratorium's to have time to actually do that before something else happens.
Right, but as you said, we have the zoning commission meeting on the 18th.
That's next week, yeah.
Next week, so why not just wait to see where we are after next week and then move forward.
Well, right,
after
that's
that
why we're not
period of
voting
time.
on this tonight.
This would still
Okay.
have to go to a second read.
Right,
Yeah,
so that's.
it's kind of timed.
Yeah, we have, I
parallel.
timed, sorry, Counselor Hall.
No, I was just saying that, oh, you were first?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I'm just getting in line.
That phase two doesn't happen in phase one. You don't know understand the ramifications of how that actually works. So my question is, how do we know what they're saying is accurate? So you're saying that the second building will not function unless it's connected to the first building?
No, for their model.
What do
They
you
have
mean
to-
their model?
So,
How
it's
they
not
like to
that,
do
it's,
things?
it's not that one doesn't work without the other, it's that
Okay.
the way they're doing them across the country, they're doing the larger data centers. The first one that we approved does not meet that new model that they have. So it's not that it won't function without the other, it's that it doesn't make business sense for them to do the smaller one without doing the two of them together.
So their
in terms
business
of
model,
power.
you say model,
The
their
business model.
business
It
model.
Right.
changed, yeah.
Well done.
And
So
so-
in 2024, when
concern
it was
of ours?
negotiated, that was the model, and since then, they've upgraded how they do business.
They change, right, because, once again, this is an industry
It's
that
moving
changes
very
very
quickly.
quickly,
Changing
right?
daily.
In fact, even the use of
So
water
it's not a priority
and
for us,
power
though.
is changing as we speak, right? So there are new systems of how to use water in data centers. There are new power models out there as well, where they use less power. These things are gonna change over time. It's a new dynamic industry, and at this point, you're in or you're out. And as you mentioned, we know from Eric Lee, we can only do about 2 data centers in Tulsa, and then we're kind of at our
Is it the super
limit.
big one, or is it the
It's
two,
the 2. So we talked, Eric Lee and I talked about this, so it's,
two separate ones, or
it's-
phase one, phase two of this
it's-
one?
we can support phase 1 and phase 2. And after phase 1 and phase 2 in Tulsa, according to Eric Lee, I think we are
Okay,
tapped out.
that's new information.
And so so what I'm saying
Why
is,
did you just say that?
I didn't understand that these are two that sit next door to,
You
they're
were
like
counting that as
twins.
one.
So,
Oh,
And
oh,
I was
you
counting
thought
it
it
as
was,
one.
okay.
no,
Oh,
these
okay.
are the 2.
Because there was another, I
That's
think
why
there
I
was
was
another
like,
conversation
I
about
don't know.
Northwest Tulsa.
And also, we act like we don't have other opportunities to stop this if something happens. Like, we have these maps that have all these red lines on it. You can do data center here, 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 and there. Yeah, that's true. But at this table, we have the power, and you have the power and position to say, no, it doesn't go there.
Well, and
They
we don't have
can't-
the water capacity.
And we don't have the water capacity anyway, so we couldn't attract them anyway.
Right, I don't
So
see how we
I
would
think,
have-
I
have
think
a say on
we're
that.
attacking a problem that may not even exist.
well,
Right.
but that's why I'm proposing a strategic pause. This industry is moving very rapidly. I think we already missed the boat on the top end, like tech part of the industry, and we're getting like data centers are kind of like the scraps of like it has to happen, and they're gonna be building rapidly. They're all competing against each other. There are lots of different companies pursuing doing these. There's not gonna be a pause point. I think any level of government, if anyone's waiting for this industry to like kind of reach some type of stasis for us to know a certain amount that'll make it easier, or we're gonna suddenly know more collectively we'll be like, oh, now it makes sense, we know exactly what policies we need. I do not think that's realistic. We've
you
always
are the
seen
pause
regulation lag industries like this, and that's normal. That's happened with the rise of print culture, that's happened with the rise of the internet. It's happening now with AI, but it is so much faster that we're not gonna have a magical moment later where we have to select to go, hey, we need to take a beat. Let's do that today to get our ducks in a row. And I'm not proposing an excessive one either. It's just, right now, when you look at what's there by zoning, and I'm not exactly sure what the mechanism is, if right now they could go in by right wherever there's industrial light,
That's my question.
how
like,
does
we
that
can't-
work that we can say now?
We couldn't
You can
pause
support
that.
it. What?
There's nothing
If
to
they don't have
support,
to
it's
rezone
already by
something.
right. They just buy the land and go. I
That's
mean, they'd
what's-
have to get permits and everything, but we didn't.
They'd also have to have the water, the permission,
There's-
the zoning, all those things that go along with
Permission
that.
is
We're saying the zoning's
But it
already
wouldn't
here.
lead to the same
Yeah, but they
scale.
gotta have the other stuff.
Right.
Right, so
I
there's.
mean, right here in my
I'm
district,
just-
there is
That's not
water, there is infrastructure, because there's cannabis grows right now, so as that industry starts to recede or get regulated and people dip out, I don't know how much acreage they need to, I mean, this Anthem needs a lot of acreage, but as we've also discussed, even right downtown right now, there's data centers. So there's smaller footprints.
Right.
And that's fine.
But I'm just raising a question around your statement that we would have some sort of say here. We do not. And where it's already zoned IL, I don't think that we do.
How would we?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Just
already,
on the development services side.
right, but as long as they
I
tick
totally
their
get what
boxes
you're-
and get
I get what you're
inspected,
saying.
yeah,
What you're
so,
saying.
I mean,
Hence the
edges of town
pause.
is something different. In town is something different.
And that's why I said, maybe it does, this is why I proposed what I proposed initially, is I think it needs to be its own zoning code.
Right, and that's what we're pursuing here, but getting time for that to happen.
I do have two questions.
Yes, Counselor Dr. Ray, and then I have Donna.
So we're talking about Wagner ad valorem. So our deputy mayor signed a deal. How does Wagner get in that deal? Just because of where it's located? And how are we negotiating ad valorem versus sales tax? I'm just trying to.
So I wasn't part of that negotiation. This is, and I want to be very clear about my involvement. So I've only met with Anthem maybe 5 times. The NDA that I signed is only that I don't speak for them. Because I know people talk about NDAs and stuff, about how maybe I'm signing an NDA that something fishy's going on. I don't even have an email address or a phone number for any of these folks. And Aaron and Renita can both attest to that. I don't have personal contact. So the only time I've ever sat in meeting is virtually and in person. And when we talk about this, it's about their process and what they're working on. The TID was something that was structured and that was sat in front of the taxing entities. I thought it was a little high, and we talked about that. I thought it was a little bit high at 85%. And that's why, in my view, because the initial phase was at that level, it seemed a bit predatory to me, but I'm no expert. And so I said, when the expansion came along, I said, well, I wouldn't support an incentive because we have a responsibility to our neighbors to the east in Wagner County. So what that looks like, how that's structured, and how those deals are set up has nothing to do with me. So that's what Renita and her team would do.
The other question I have is, I can't remember who said it now, maybe you, Aaron, or maybe you, Chris, Counselor Binkle. They're high revenue generators.
There.
What kind of revenue?
So they would pay, just like the fact sheet says here, they would have to pay the costs. They're actually having to, the $25 million of infrastructure that they were required to put in, they put in money towards the much larger development. So for, for the first 5 years, they're putting in $5 million a year towards the Fair Oaks development. And then right here.
So capital investments?
Yeah, they're putting, yeah.
And that's the smaller scale,
Yeah.
because actually, data centers have to retool every 3 to 4 years.
Right.
So all that equipment that's in there right now, $80 million of equipment, comes back out, gets rebought and put back in that system
Right.
over every 3 to 4 years.
And are they buying
period.
it locally, or are they buying it wherever they want and bringing it in? I'm just trying to understand
Yeah.
the benefit to, I don't understand
Some of it's
the revenue benefit to the city of Tulsa right now.
Well,
That's
sorry,
his
can I-
job.
And the franchise fee is.
Yeah, and it doesn't
That's his
have,
job.
it doesn't have to be told to us today, but I think if we're
Right.
trying to make decisions about how we engage with this industry, that would be helpful
Which I will,
to know. I mean, we don't need to know today, but.
Yeah, so just, no, I have, okay, we'll do Renita, and then I have Janet and Archie, and I'll just name real quick. I know we're not gonna figure this out all right now in this moment, hence though also the need for the pause, but yes.
And honestly, thank you so much for doing this, because I know that you're looking out for all of us here. I'll just say on that, so if we look at the industry, number one, when everything was signed, we weren't using AI like we are now. Now it's everywhere. So I think it's clearly not a bait and switch. The industry has grown over this period of time. Our use of AI has, all of us individually are now using it. And that's where this new multi-region, they call it a multi-region approach, for the companies, where it's not just about one anymore. They like to have multiple to operate their systems. So it's it's nearby, but it's called a multi-region or a multi-colony approach to data centers within the same company. Now, if we look at the data centers that were built in like Northwest Louisiana and Virginia, huge projects, same thing, capital, infrastructure, really, really amazing, to areas that didn't have it previously. And that's what I see our role is, right? Economic development is about incentivizing projects that wouldn't have happened without it. And so that's what happened in Virginia and Northwest Louisiana. And we call this a catalytic project because it's the downstream effects of having it there. So of course there's capital investment and all the good things. But what ends up happening is that the security services, the neighboring ecosystem businesses that go to support that start to come in because it's there. And we have evidence of that in, again, Virginia. Actually, Virginia has one of the highest numbers of data centers.
Loudoun County.
Yeah, and then Northwest Louisiana. So it's a bet we're all taking that those things are gonna come, and that means more jobs, more tax revenue, building, more infrastructure in an area that didn't have it. And I didn't bring my data with me, but I can send that to you, about what that looks like and how that's been happening.
Well, that's why I do want to reiterate, and then I have a quick little list, and I know for time reasons, we're gonna have to move on. What I do want to reiterate is this isn't actually one carved out project anthem. I think the matter at hand is they're saying, hey, we're only gonna do X if this other piece happens, which not even us right now knows if that's gonna be viable with zoning. And that's on for planning commission next week, so we'll see what happens there. But in the long run though, you could hear all the reason for this pause. There's a lot to investigate here. That said, when people are looking for more information or more data, it's moving very quickly and evolving so fast. It's not like there's these like whole comprehensive, this is exactly what's even if we knew something today, that could be different so rapidly, which I think is why it's important for us to have that pause moment. There is, because we initiated that, zoning amendment kind of review when it comes to data centers of a certain size, there is a staff working group that's been put together. We're not trying to do this in the absence of experts. I'm trying to make sure that we just have a solid chunk of time to genuinely pursue that. I'll add you to the, sorry, I have a queue going, I'm sorry. Okay, I have, Councilor Dectory, did you have more? Okay, Councilor Dutton.
Okay, so, having worked in the computer industry since 1979, I watched how transition happened and how quickly it happened. And going from big mainframes to tiny little computer centers and whatnot, and eventually the chips that we have on our phones. That said, we still don't know what the future holds for these data centers. This might be great for the next 4 years, but we don't know what it looks like afterwards. And so I think the pause is necessary to get all the information and data we need. And according to statistics, that by 2028, data centers will be using up to 12% of the energy usage in the United States. That's a lot. And that's just a proximity. And that's just a determination that we aren't really sure is going to happen. It could be far greater. So I have great concerns for my constituents and great concerns for the district as a whole, being that the east side, and predominantly my district, will be home eventually to some of these data centers. It is concerning to my constituents.
I have Councilor Archie.
Okay, I'll be very quick. I agree with a lot of what's been said. Yes, no incentives, no further incentives. We don't know everything that we need to know. And it seems like what you're suggesting is because it's so evolving, we may never fully know, but I mean, just on just plain sense, I agree, they're not putting data centers in neighborhoods for our health. There is likely some negative nuisance, so it's like just balancing what we're willing to accept, what versus not. We are exempting Anthem.
Mm-hmm.
There is a vote next week, or what's the week after? Is that right?
For the planning commission
Yeah.
next week for
Which,
phase
right.
2.
Which I'm not confident of, but we'll see what they say.
That's the 1 o'clock.
Right.
Just to that point, Sonia, it really doesn't matter, because we decided that.
It's just a
It's still gonna come to
Right,
us.
Yes,
right.
just a recommendation.
But I think I think
Doesn't
the
matter.
recommendation will.
Be split.
Well, you have the experts, and we want to definitely take serious what they're saying. But with all that, with it being exempt, how many data centers are in the pipeline proposed?
So I will say right now, Partner Tulsa is not actively pursuing any other
Okay.
data centers or any other projects, and that's the policy we are.
But that doesn't preclude other ones happening, or we have all the regional ones that are tapping our water, right?
There are regional.
Statewide.
Yeah, and statewide, but I will say for the city ourselves.
Did you have more, Councilor Archie?
No, I think I'm.
It might be good though to get a report, because to your point, Counselor, you're on the edge of several counties, you're on the edge of several counties, we're definitely on the, it's not gonna necessarily happen in the city center until it becomes microscopic.
Yeah.
So it would be good to know, because Wagner County is not miles and miles away from
Right.
Tulsa County, right? And
Right.
so when we talk about impacts, I heard what you said about, it brings all the wraparound to a new industry, but what I'm not hearing is what happens to the residences that already exist and the businesses that already exist.
And what we see across communities across the country is pretty concerning for
was
that, hence just
near
being
a
mindful.
pre-existing
So Aaron,
subdivision.
so this just one
That would be a
follow-up.
legitimate
Yeah,
concern.
Anthem's not, but I'm
Right.
talking about precedent for these other things.
I totally
I
agree.
think what I'm hearing though is like, this is happening,
Yeah, I'm not trying to say it's not.
and it sounds like there's a carve-out for this project that's already happening.
Yes.
So it's a yes and as far as
A
I'm
carve out for
hearing.
one, but not for two, so
Well,
I
but-
would like to see a carve out for one and two.
It is, I will just name that procedurally, since
Pending
two is still going
zoning.
through a
Zoning, yes.
public process, yeah, we can't,
Right.
we can't prematurely exempting something before it's actually gone through the public process
Yeah,
undermines
yeah,
that.
we
So
can't
that's where
do
it's
that.
really sticky to me. Sorry, Counselor Archie, you had a
Yeah,
follow-up?
so why not wait?
One of the, yes, so
Well, that's
one,
next week.
Yeah, it's,
The
Right.
But
zoning.
it's not really next week.
Week after.
It just
'Cause then
is-
it'll be
No.
weeks
But
of-
just as Counselor Hall Harper said, it comes
Clarity.
to us.
Yeah, but we'll know next week, even if the zoning commission is bringing it.
But we
Or
won't
they
know
might-
what action we've taken until we've
Correct.
actually taken it.
and that could be weeks out
Which
after
would-
we've approved MTPD 6 and someone else could come in during
I
that
gotcha.
time. Counselor Archie?
let's speak to this directly, Aaron. Some folks have said, maybe data centers, they've, have negative impacts, maybe it's mixed impacts, but a moratorium for an entire year sends a broader signal that perhaps we're not as friendly to industry or business as we should be. Do you think that that's a legitimate critique?
Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to argue both sides of that,
Okay.
of that statement.
I appreciate that.
So, yes, there will be a thought from some people that that means that we are not opened up for business. As an economic developer, that's only part of my calculation, right? It's doing what's best for the city and the area as well. So I have to balance those two things. And so if it means we have to take a pause to make sure it's right for the city and for the area, I'm 100% behind that. My big concern right now is that in the pipeline, I have a deal
Right.
that I have some kind of commitment to. And what the broader impact for me is that if I stop that deal, then that goes out as you're not open for business. You made some commitments that you didn't back up. And that's what concerns me as a professional. And so that's where my hesitation comes in. However, what Councilor Bellis is trying to do, I support 100%. Let's take a look, make sure we have the right zoning, that we're doing it the right way, but I just want to do it in a way that's kind of balanced and
Yeah.
cautious of the business that we have in the pipeline
I'd be,
as well.
I'd be curious with the Cherokee Nation, all the research is coming to the table.
Because they're doing
and-
that report.
Right, exactly, right.
And that's what I'm saying. I would love to do that. I would love to have a session where we bring professionals from both sides of the argument together to hear the full picture and then make decisions based on, once we've had the full picture, what you guys think is best for the city and moving forward. I just don't want to move quickly. I want to move smartly and cautiously.
Right, hence a moratorium helps us.
Thank you.
I'm just naming, hold on, I have Lincoln. Well, and I'll just surface, part of me here is saying, I just think sometimes our city has low self-esteem about business. I just am like, maybe I watched too much Love is Blind lately. I just want us to have standards, boundaries and standards. Okay, all right, I have Counselor Bush, Paul Harper, and Lakin, which I know we have another presentation. I'm flagging for time.
And a 1 o'clock meeting.
And a 1 o'clock meeting, I'm putting,
Putting that out there.
we'll get there. Okay.
Mine is more of a statement, not open for debate or whatever. Yesterday, those of us that were at the One Voice at the Capitol, we saw a presentation
Great.
on what was happening with data centers going forward. There was data presented. Yes, they started out big pieces of land, but they're pulling the utilities, the infrastructure in
Yep.
and paying for that.
Right.
As the data centers get to here, for those of us that are older, this used to be the size of this room. Cobalt key punch. Now I was trained to use a computer and now it's this.
No idea.
Data centers by the second are going from this
Yep.
to this to this to this. What's happening is when they leave that footprint, it is opening up for advanced manufacturing because the infrastructure has already be played in. So as you were talking as economic developers, what others in other states have done is said, yeah, we're gonna do this, we're gonna play with you a little bit, mindful of resources. But what's happened is, as they abandon that space, others have been able to occupy it. It's cheaper for them to come in, the infrastructure's already pulled.
100%.
So I just wanna throw that out and.
Other industries are.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Advanced manufacturing, which there is a huge thing. The state of Oklahoma is looking at a statewide level, advancing incentives and different opportunities to go after not only aerospace and all the little minute things that might need that property, plus other manufacturing type things. We've lost out on several things over the decades because we're not prepared. And I agree.
Yeah.
We've got to be mindful of our water resources, because the other debate going on at the Capitol right now is water. There's a lot of water bills out there for a lot of different things. And one of the comments that was made, I'm just gonna say, a lot of the tools or a lot of the things that go into data centers are being done without water. The advanced technology, I can tell you.
Aeon's developing some, right?
Aeon's got it, we're doing it. So, as that continues to develop, and I'm telling you, it's like this.
Yeah.
It's there, so I don't want us to miss opportunities.
I agree.
But I agree, so my question, the only thing up for debate,
Yeah.
I just wanted you to know the
Yeah.
conversation at the state level
Yes,
is
I've been-
moving 10 times faster than we are.
Of course, and that's why I'm like.
But can we do what about a 6-month? And why a year? This
To me, this
industry
was-
is moving
I
so
would be
fast.
maybe,
I'm
one
just
of my
asking.
initial proposal, I'd kind of looked at 9 months, just to flag to you all, part of how I got to the year was what allowed for the time for that thorough, you know, for the staff to really pull together research and information, and then, also like knowing, once we learned that there was that Cherokee Nation report, I was like, what allows for that time? Though I initially had looked at 9 months, which I don't think needs to be off the table as far as like, I'm not sitting here going, I insistently think it has to look exactly like this. I just really want us to be able to mindfully do the right thing.
Can you send me the
Yeah.
information on who presented that data? If there was a company,
No, it wasn't a company.
Well, no, it's just statements from the
Different.
workforce or the economic development team.
It's a.
From the
State and
chamber?
No, they were
State.
state officials.
Okay, I had Counselor Hall Harper, Lincoln, and
Oh,
then.
yeah, no, you represented it exactly correctly.
Okay, yeah, that was, I think that's good information, Counselor Hall Harper.
Following up on what Councilor Bush was saying, the language could be a year or less.
Yeah.
If-
It
so
could be like
just
from the
with that
time the
understanding
recommendation comes
sooner.
forward.
If we get the questions answered that we have, and the experts at the table that we want to see and hear from, then it could be less.
Yes.
So just throwing that out there. Also, I heard an incentive about bringing jobs. My understanding, and what I've read, is that these data centers don't bring a lot of jobs. That the data, the centers, the computers, whatever, they function on their own, so.
It's the other.
It's the investment, yeah.
What's the other?
The capital investment, the equipment investment.
It's
the
more
sales
like-
tax and that.
so like one
That's
time-
generates more.
Specifically said
You're saying
jobs.
like one-time
You're talking about
jobs.
building it?
Yes, building
Okay,
and,
not
and re-equipping it every 3 or 4 years.
But it's also
Okay,
jobs.
not every day is what I'm saying.
Subsequent.
And so when you're talking about, it's gonna bring in, and I know we're talking about restaurants and different things around a development like that.
Well,
I mean,
they're not gonna be
on the
that close.
day-to-day, my understanding says it's not gonna be a lot of people. When you're building it, yes, but every 3 years,
We're talking about
yes,
two
but
different
what about
things.
that day?
So with the Anthem project, we're talking about the fact that that infrastructure from the Anthem 1 and 2 projects puts in infrastructure
For
that builds
other
out
things.
the community across the street. So, but for that infrastructure they're putting in right now, this development that's gonna be retail, housing, those things don't happen without the city putting in
So
that
not
infrastructure for
jobs in the
itself.
data centers, jobs that come downstream?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Within whatever proximity
Downstream
is
development.
palatable.
Which is
Or
across the
those
street.
that are supporting that. Let's take Aon, since you brought it up, right? We provide cool air, or clean air solutions for data centers, hospitals, and pharmaceuticals. we're in 5 states. You all mentioned Tennessee. We have, the jobs that we have had to hire and the expansion, our footprint to support this industry has been a major economic impact in all the communities where we are, including Tulsa, with extra jobs. I mean, it's.
I got you.
Another quick example, Crusoe, who recruited here last May, they make the racks that go into data centers. They have quadrupled in size in a year, have moved from their 80,000 square foot facility to a 4,000 square foot facility because of the growth they've had here in Tulsa. So there are other companies around that do benefit from the work that happens at those data centers.
So just to, for time purposes and several other things, to put a slight pin in it, what I'm hearing, one, we'll see we don't have council next week. Obviously, gonna put this back on committee the following week. There'll be the planning commission in between. I am definitely think that looking at either that 12-month, once we get a report and we update our zoning, we could always move faster. So I think that's a really good friendly amendment that kind of meets kind of what I was hearing from Councilor Bush. So I'll work on mocking that up to bring back to you all, and we can, talk a bit, talk more, and we'll have that planning commission piece in the interim of that. Just quickly checking if anyone else had anything else to put up. Yes, Councilor Lakin.
Yeah, I would say personally, I'm better off making decisions when I hear from more people before making that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So we really haven't heard from any experts other than these two. PSO coming to the table, water coming to the table, and planning. Heard a lot about planning related items today, but planning's not even in the room that I can see. But that would help me before moving forward. And then I would caution us in taking action that could affect the outcome of an entity that's now going through a public process. It just feels like we should let that process take place and let it finish before we take action that could prohibit that thing from going forward through another action. So if that's already in place, we already know something's going to happen next week, we already know it's going to end up on our plate at some point, we could take action after that's resolved and finished, but inserting ourselves into it now.
Well, and that's
with
what
a different
when I brought this
process
forward,
seems-
I didn't know they were gonna be pursuing that, just to be clear.
Well,
Just so you know.
I know, but now we know, I mean, we've discussed it around this table, so there is a public process moving forward with
That'll take,
that other element.
which from planning commission to make it all the way through council usually takes how many days?
I don't know. But,
It's
I mean,
a couple.
4 or 6 weeks, depending on agenda timing.
Okay.
It's a couple months and it depends on notices that we need to send.
Yeah, that can be quite a stretch of time, which I'm just naming as part of,
right, but the
kind of
good point
counteractive
is
to doing a
that
pause.
we've been told we don't have anything else coming through their pipeline.
Right.
Through
And
their pipeline.
I know,
Yeah.
I know. But this just came onto the table, so that's been on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So we should take a little bit more time with this, in my opinion.
That's fair.
Than just running this through.
Yep.
So, and I would benefit a lot from the other people and perspectives and getting more traction on this information.
No, that makes sense. I think it'll be good to have our water, and then PSO, with respect to them being a private company.
I just have one more thing. You brought up the Midnight Rodeo and that whole process. So as we're looking at this, especially as it relates to noise, right, specific, because if I remember
infrasound.
correctly, code enforcement can measure noise level with a decibel meter.
We don't.
Because it's not a.
Do it that way.
Yeah, well, whatever, however they made the determination. Those event centers should have that same look, in my opinion. Are they zoned correctly? Because they are noise generators, right?
For like
Because they
bass
are
and
nuisance.
vibrations,
Yeah, they can be
literally
a nuisance
vibrating.
equally,
Yeah,
so.
I've learned all about infrasound recently.
So if we're looking at
Yeah.
zoning,
That's what
we need to take a broad approach
Mm-hmm.
on the specific developments, especially as they are neighboring subdivisions.
I just want to point out real quick, and then we can move on, the irony of us trying to be like, we need more of a pause so that we can take a pause. I think that's I'll be sleeping on that for I don't know, not sleeping for weeks, just contemplating how we're hold on, let's all slow down here and really take a pause before we take a pause, if then we take a pause at all. Anyway, I think that's funny. but in like a sad way probably. Okay, thank you all so much for your time and thoughtful deliberation. What, you have to acknowledge it's deeply ironic in like a really tragic way for communities. I think no one can say that, these are,
It's the disclaimer before the disclaimer.
yeah, it's like, hold on, let's just be really slow while we slow down. Okay, so, thank you all so much for everyone's good faith conversations. I know we don't always agree, but I know we're being thoughtful.
Thanks, Erin.
So I really value that. All right, we are moving on. Don't worry, she had a heads up this would happen to her. We are moving on to item 6, discussion.
Here,
Yes.
I just want to point
This one?
out, so
Yeah.
item 7 has 4 sub-items in it, so
Yes.
just for pacing.
Yeah.
If we could keep this maybe to like 20 or 30. so
Yes, we have already, yes, we will, we will be speedy. We are on agenda item 6, discussion and presentation with representatives from Tulsa Women's Commission regarding an understanding of the systemic barriers facing women in Tulsa and to identify opportunities for policy alignment, cross-sector collaboration, and targeted action. We're just gonna switch to a different Laura show. So we have Dr. Laura Lotta with us, Chair of the Women's Commission. She has about a 10-minute presentation, and time for questions. She knew we would be coming off of this discussion and said she was cool with that.
Yeah. Is this the best place for me to sit, or should I adjust?
You're fine.
Okay, I wasn't really.
Are you comfortable? If you're gonna be comfortable somewhere.
You'll have a confidence monitor here that you'll be able to see the presentation on as well.
Okay. Well, good morning. It's so good to be here with you. I am Laura Latta. I'm the executive director. My day job is I'm the executive director of the Tulsa Higher Education Consortium. But even more important than that, I'm a lifelong Oklahoman, lifelong Tulsan. I've lived in the Hope Valley area of town for my entire life. And I am the chair of the Tulsa Women's Commission. I'm also a mom, a former teacher, and have taught in elementary school, at the college level, so education is really, really important to me. And I'm excited to share with you about the work of the Tulsa Women's Commission as it impacts all of the women in our city. So I want to name first that I'm representing 15 other incredible women and recognize them here on this slide so that you can see who else has been a critical part of this conversation. Over the last few years, we have participated in 3 different initiatives, starting with the Mayor's Pay Equity Pledge. In 2026, women make 76 cents for every dollar earned by men, so there is a pay equity gap. We generated a pay equity pledge that over 52 businesses have signed since its inception, indicating that they will evaluate their compensation practices, identify any gender wage gaps that exist among their employees, and eliminate those gaps. So we're very proud of that work, and that work continues to go on beyond just that 2021. Each time we meet, we celebrate those companies that have signed that pay equity pledge. In 2020, let me skip ahead. In 2023, 2024, our next issue was childcare access. As we know that women are disproportionately impacted by lack of childcare access, and if there is a caregiver, it is often women that are a caregiver in the home. It's often women who have to leave the workforce in order to take care of caregiving duties. Childcare is expensive. I am currently feeling that burden very heavily as childcare is more than my mortgage. Lack of childcare contributes to workforce shortages, so it's an economic development issue. It's not just a women's issue, it's a family issue. Oklahoma lost $1.2 billion in productivity due to childcare barriers. And as of last year, 34 of Oklahoma's 77 counties are considered childcare deserts, resulting in 2-year wait lists for infants. I think that's ironic because by the time you make it off the wait list, you no longer have an infant.
Yeah.
So there's, right, exactly. So the Women's Commission researched and developed resources to support families searching for childcare. We developed the 2024 report and a website that featured resources, including a child care access navigator, parent experiences, to elevate the voices of parents that either had to leave the workforce or were having to navigate childcare, like finding childcare, paying for childcare, and then maintaining employment. And then also advocacy for employers to partner with their employees to support them, and then partner with childcare providers. We generated a few recommendations, and this was a leveled approach after we looked at many communities across the nation. We also took a page out of the playbook of Oklahoma City, who did a lot of work in this area. Their chamber focused very heavily on childcare access. But our leveled approach was really recommendations for employer partners to, at level 1, just get started by offering flexible scheduling and remote work options for caregivers. And then scaling up to a more comprehensive integration, like this is, a little more, but having on-site or near-site childcare facilities. And then scaling up even more to possibly a tri-share model where there is shared provision of funding that's shared by 3 entities: the parent, the government, the state, and then the employer to the child care provider, which might cut some of the costs and make child care more affordable and accessible to families. That was our focus for 2024, 2025, and continues. So all of these are ongoing. We aren't stopping just because we're kind of shifting our perspective, but I wanted you to bring you up to speed on where we are. We're continuing to share these resources. We're continuing to advocate. Recently, there was a $50 million cut in the childcare industry. The commission is really interested in advocating against cuts to the childcare industry when it is something that is so critically needed for our workforce and for our citizenry. And then also keeping an eye on bills that support childcare. Now we're in the most recent initiative, which has been, when we all sat at the table, we said, what should we focus on next? We have a lot of really incredible, talented people from a variety of different disciplines, from law to business to education, and realized that we actually, in keeping with the theme today, needed some time to identify what were some of the biggest issues and barriers facing women. So we invited speakers over the course of 12 months to speak on, and these are experts, economic security, housing stability, mental health, trauma recovery, human trafficking, safety, health, and empowerment. And we conducted a qualitative research study where we culled all of that information and all of that data and identified a through line of what are the issues most impacting women across these areas. And ultimately, we learned that safety was an intersecting thread that wove through all of these, specifically as it relates to housing stability, mental health, economic opportunity, and healthcare access. So you can see our framework that we've developed collectively. This is actually our committee structure, so the columns represent sort of the committee focus areas. And then the bottom, we found, originally that was also a column, but we identified that systems, rights, and institutional safety thread through each of those 4 areas. So our focus now, it's well-timed because the city of Tulsa was also brought into the Carter Center's cohort for Inform Women cohort. And we're going to be focusing on safety collectively and how we can share information about resources related to safety, specifically partnering with the key partners listed on the screen here. Many of them are part of the city organizations also, like Family Safety Center, Housing Solutions Tulsa, the Mental Health Association, and Planning in Neighborhoods. This will be our focus coming forward in the new year. And really our call to action is one, just at minimum, to read the reports. We've spent a lot of time interviewing and curating information about safety as it relates to women, childcare, pay equity, please read those and help us share the information. Help us think about the best ways that we can get the empowering information into the hands of women. And then advocating for solutions that are creative, like the Tri-Share model, and get us connected with those that may help the cause. So that's my presentation. I'd love to answer any questions if there are any.
I have Councilor Bush.
Not a question, but hi, Laura.
Hi.
I know your mom.
Yeah.
We grew up together. So, a long time ago. Oh, are you?
That's well, like,
I
I'm in
know.
that
Right.
stream, I'm in that
Okay.
stream.
It's just small town. That Tri-Share model, is Representative Suzanne Schreiber
That's right.
it,
Has a bill
and
up right now.
And it's getting through the system.
Yep.
And, Aon is, if this goes through, is gonna be one of the pilots to do that.
Wonderful.
She's identified 2 other organizations kind of statewide, but in the Tulsa area.
Webco, just,
Huh?
wasn't it Webco?
Is that what it was?
Was that who it was?
I know, I don't
I think
remember.
it was right there.
I know, they talked about it yesterday at the Capitol, so it's a conversation, so that's great. That-
Fantastic.
I mean, obviously, it probably came from some of the work you all did. So I just wanted you to know that is
Yay.
making it through the state process.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
There are 2 bills we're keeping an eye on, House Bill 4199 and House Bill 4201, that have to do with Tri-Share, which is 4199, and 4201, which is Oklahoma Child Care Facilities licensing.
Yeah, that's another,
Yeah. Yeah.
I know.
Thank you
good.
so much. That's
Good work.
exciting. Yes.
All right, I'm Councilor Archie.
Yes, and also I looked it up, Aon has signed the pledge, that pay equity pledge.
That's right.
It's
So,
like we're advertising. Sorry, go ahead.
I
No, I know.
Do I need to recuse
I'm
myself?
not-
Those are enormous.
Yes, there you
Yes,
go.
you have. That's
Yes.
correct.
Oklahoma Coffee should sign the pledge. Okay, anyway, and I need to read the report. But I'm just gonna sort of put it out there, and maybe someone around the table can give me a resource. Of course, I'm approached by a lot of developers, they wanna develop in my district. I'm curious about, well, if you wanna develop, you wanna create green space or a mural, can you also include space for a childcare facility, some small childcare facility? How can we take this childcare need, build it into infrastructure development, sort of making that a natural process, or a conversation that is a little bit more robust in our planning and zoning conversations?
I did a fellowship on that actually a bit with the Hunt Institute, where there's opportunities, that's part of why we did some of that building code reform, or slash fire suppression
Right.
topic. But the other piece here is when we're doing housing things, we can incentivize going, hey, if you're gonna build a multifamily unit, can you carve out 1 or 2 of those units to be home child care operators? So there are kind of those opportunities going, hey, if you're gonna add in a space, you could either incentivize or find other ways to encourage and go, if you're gonna do this, could this be a use that we ensure there's physical space for as part of that development?
For sure. If you want to, you gonna say something as well, or?
No, that's
Okay.
exactly spot on. And then also, we've got a lot of great community advocates. CAP and Educare and their leadership are the absolute top experts, and many childcare providers in the area, I would say, having conversations with them as well.
For sure. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then I had a question related to, since I'm so glad you have that safety theme, because I know so many women, myself included, where I'm like, I wish I felt like I could safely walk around my neighborhood, whatever hour of the day, or all of those other things, or be able to walk in and out of downtown or what have you. I was kind of curious, knowing that one big element, of course, with safety has to do with domestic violence rates. We have high and rising ones. Do you all have interactions with, I know there's a commission or task force that's doing that simultaneously. Do you all work with them, or do they report at all to you all, or is there any interaction there with that group that's meeting?
I think there's been an introduction, but
Okay.
that sounds like a really good next step to be more connected.
Yeah, I wonder, because I wonder I don't know what they're kind of generating next step wise, or with kind of maybe the public safety commissioner. I was just kind of curious what that might look like. Councilor Dunn?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that aspect as well, because I know on Admiral and 11th Street, there's still the prostitution issues. And walking as a single person on either one of those areas east of Yale, the danger is real. My housemate was actually followed the other day into where her storage unit is by a man, and this is the second time it's happened, and he approached her. And so safety concerns are huge, walking in areas that are predominantly areas for
I think you're touching on the trafficking issue too.
Yeah,
Do you all,
that's
have you
right.
had OCAT come to the Oklahoma Coalition Against Trafficking interact with you all?
We did not,
Okay.
but we
That
had
might
a
be
few
another.
organizations, but that may be a really great resource that we should
Because they
consult.
have public safety, like they have like TPD representatives at the table too. I think that could be really interesting as you're trying to like, kind of robustly wrap your arms around some of those safety issues.
There was no crime in that, he just stopped and asked her if she needed a ride, that's usually how it starts. And so that's a safety issue,
Yeah.
for sure, for women.
Something that was new to me that I learned from our inquiry was the concept of polyvictimization and like multiple layers of trauma that women experience from domestic violence, emotional abuse, things like that, and the very high, shockingly high rate of suicidal ideation or self-harm. So that's certainly something that we are paying close attention to.
Councilor Dr. Wright.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you for holding space for a lot of these heavy topics, and your whole team. All of those volunteers are doing great things out in the world and then are coming to the city and offering this. The amount of research that you are presenting and the reports are so helpful to us. I think I just do want to amplify, it's not helpful if we don't read them.
Yep.
And I will say, when your childcare report came out, I think it was right as the administration was changing, new council, and I even missed it, and I was like.
That's why I was like, let's put this.
Yeah,
on the
so I
table.
appreciate that we're doing that, especially as some of us are really digging in to our childcare desert. I mean, it's horrible that it's across the state. It
Let's
is a
get it
family
nice.
issue, it's also a workforce issue, and I think we really need to amplify that aspect of it. Women are contributors in the workforce despite us making less than our male counterparts. And as we talk about bringing new industry and scaling and growing business here, if we don't have women who can be in the workforce, that's gonna be a challenge, because women are also the most educated workforce right now, statistically speaking, especially Black women. And so when we look at these statistics and how it all layers in, who we're leaving out impacts us all, from the family issue on, obviously, talking about, start of life, 0 to 3, all of those things. I also did want to connect a dot, so when we're talking about these impacts, if you'll remember last week when we had Emily at our table, 50% of people experiencing homelessness in Tulsa are escaping domestic violence. So when we talk about how we're solving problems in our city, these things are intermeshed. Not being able to work, earn a living wage, financial abuse that's keeping you stuck at home, whatever the issues are. So as we're talking about problem solving, I think it's important to take these reports and layer them in at our table from a policy perspective and a budgetary prioritization, whether it's our dollars or bringing in private dollars, state dollars, federal. Otherwise, we're just I'll use your phrase, admiring a problem. So I do appreciate you taking your time, especially after that last discussion, it's not easy just to now let's refocus on this, but it's so important. All 3 of these reports, the other things that you all have been doing, and I would be curious, maybe we wait until Representative Schreiber gets through session, but to come back around on the
Especially
childcare
the
thing
tri-share,
specifically,
yeah.
yes.
Let's see what happens.
And see what we can, as we talk about being business friendly, right, and workforce development, how do we engage the regional chamber and others to have these conversations? Because if we're going to move to tri-share, then maybe we should be incentivizing businesses that will come in and
Well, you
pilot
also
the
have, is the
program.
city gonna be the model for that,
Yeah.
right? We have to
Right.
think about
Yeah,
that.
there is sorry.
No, please, yeah.
there is a fiscal impact to her
Absolutely.
pilot program,
Which makes me nervous for
which
it.
makes everybody nervous because
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a.
But it has such an ROI.
I know, but it's a minimal amount, so we'll see what happens. But when we talk about the tri-share, that would be, even if we did it something at the local level, there would be a budgetary impact to do that of some sort.
And maybe we could get grant funds
Yeah.
to try a pilot, but
Right. I
as
know.
we're,
I'm just saying, yeah.
as we're leveraging Partner Tulsa's
Exactly.
relationships, Aaron's relationships out, trying to bring in business, or scale up business that's here.
Sure.
That is
How
a-
do we say, hey, would you partner, you're gonna have 2,500 employees, clearly there's gonna be families, will you partner with us on this
Yeah,
thing?
Nick, I know we need to
Oh, no,
move
no,
on.
yeah.
But there is another element of that, I don't know what that other bill is, I haven't, so many bills. But the liability issue, some of the daycares have gone out because of the insurance
That
rates.
they're required to hold,
Have-
yeah.
So, and as DHS has cut their funding, they're going to more of the private pay, but they gotta pass on those costs, just like any business that's got, they use tax liabilities, insurance liabilities, they pass it on. So yesterday at the Capitol, there were some folks there with the child care that were talking about, we need to, there's more than just the DHS incentives that are being cut, both federally and at the state level, the liability, the cost of doing business. That hasn't been experienced in the past. So I appreciate, I think when Schreiber is successful, we come back and celebrate, but let's build on the
Yeah.
rest of the problem.
And circle back and tie
Yep.
that there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Counselor Bengal?
Yeah, I would say 100 times over, we're at least making progress as a society on this issue of childcare. Because luckily all my kids were grown, and I can tell, you were talking about how your childcare is more than your mortgage. We had that same struggle in the 90s of when you have 3 kids and they all have to be in daycare, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, what's the balance here? Am I making enough to pay,
Is
to
it
make
worth
it
it?
make
Yeah.
sense
That's
that
right.
both of us are working? And it just barely met the threshold. And so it's great that, you know, companies are now recognizing that it's important, and that, you know, having to be away from home or, you know, be a care provider when you don't have that option of working from home or whatever. I think it's great that they're doing that. I do want to ask a question about the 15 to 17% of Tulsa police officers. So is there, how many women would you say in your study of all this, how many women are actually applying for the academy? Do you know?
We had Commissioner Laurel Roberts present, and there's a pretty extensive section in the report. I don't have the raw data on how many, but I know that the representation percentage-wise was relatively low.
Okay, so the applications submitted by women were relatively, so does that kind of match? Is that comparative to matching what the number that are applying? Does that seem like a fair statement? So would you say the
Yeah,
number of
I'll-
applications matches what the staffing?
That's an
on the
excellent
police department?
question. Let me
And I think
send
this
a
was-
follow-up to
Yeah.
confirm or.
Because I always want to make
This was
sure
the quality
when we
indicators
present,
hearing.
when we present data, that it's not necessarily presented as a negative.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That when you're talking about empowering women, are they actually applying, right? So-
Yeah, because if we don't, it's our own fault.
Right.
No, I'm kidding.
That's-
I actually don't.
It's their own fault. If it's
No, I
open
was,
to them-
that's what he was saying, and I'd actually disagree with that sentiment, because it's also like, what kind of environment or culture are you
Well, it
inviting
is
them
in the
into?
equality indicators, justice. and
Yes.
we'll be-
I
That's what I'm saying.
bringing
them
back. Another
Are
thing
you
that came
empowering
up.
women or telling women that this is open to them, right?
Yeah, I
And-
think one interesting thing I hadn't thought about was,
Mean.
especially because I was a nursing mother for a year with both of my kids, and you have to carve out time to do that and have space. And thinking about that for
5
somebody,
hours a day minimum.
a lot of time, and thinking about like that, having like creating space and time and an opportunity to do that in a law enforcement job is really important, but not something that's commonly thought of. Even down to the uniforms and the fit of uniforms and bulletproof vests.
I've heard that from officers before.
Are tailored to men, not women's bodies, which was not also something that I knew either before the units of inquiry. So it's really interesting thinking about the logistics and the day in and day out of the job and how we can make it more conducive and supportive for a stronger women representation in that workforce. So I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Please don't hesitate to send us recommendations at any point. You all are doing so much critical research.
Yeah.
And I know there's the whole provision of all the Title V commissions presenting kind of to the council, and that tends to happen at 5 o'clock, but I think it's important for us to actually have that kind of discussion space here, so please let us know as you guys release more data and information. It's really helpful, and we want to make sure we're doing real substantive policy change per the work you all do.
Thank you so much, Councilor
Thank you so
Bellis.
much.
Thank you so much.
All right, we are on agenda item 7. Don't worry, there's lunch somewhere in this building.
That was just
Yeah,
texting.
I know, if someone was stressed, there is food if you want to go pull a knee and go get it and bring it to the table. All right, we are on agenda item 7, city council discussion regarding possible selection of charter amendments.
I don't understand
Now
how
that
we
we're
go
good.
weeks and weeks with cancel committee meetings and we
And then we
ourselves. It's-
I know, then we stack,
I've
but there's
never
not a
experienced
two.
it till this year,
I
it's
know.
wild.
Oh, my God.
I know, it's a weird, we've had a weird cadence. That last one's like,
Oh,
yeah, that's low key.
Oh,
This
no, you
is,
can't go.
Please
Yeah,
go
I'm tired.
on our behalf.
all right.
I got somebody's well.
All right, we have, I think, we're looking at, we have 4 different charter amendment proposals we're looking at today.
Yes.
All right, who's,
So the first one is Jack revisiting the longevity pay, is that correct, Sarah?
yeah, great.
Yeah, so, last week's discussion focused on a floor, replacing the $7.50. So, all I've done in this version is just carve out a space for that to be determined. And you can discuss the formula for developing that. And on the second page, I included the current longevity pay provisions from both collective bargaining agreements, so just so you can see how those are currently structured as a point of reference.
And this needs to be decided by April 1st or April 15th?
Conceptually by the first, finally, I think, following that. So I think,
Okay.
yes. But not in its final form necessarily.
Nope.
So I don't know that there needs to be much discussion on this today. We can revisit it.
Okay, I appreciate that. I know Counselor Bush and I were a little insistent, but it helps to have the information.
It does.
I think it would be important to talk to the entities that'll be most impacted by the decision. Okay, so we will commit to doing that.
Bringing them to the table?
No, just probably offline and come back and report out. I just mentioned Counselor Bush and I
Yeah.
have been working on this with Counselor Gilbert, obviously, and Jack and Sarah and the administration. So if it would be helpful to just kind of go have a conversation and come back with a
That makes
final
sense.
consensus. Unless anyone sitting here is like, absolutely not, just take it off.
No, whoever's most proximal, just let you, yeah,
Okay.
let's see what they say.
I appreciate that.
That's helpful.
Yeah, so that ties into the next presentation that Counselor Bush and I have, which is relative to the same section of the charter, which is the miscellaneous Article 12. If you'll look at what you just received from Jack, it's 12.1, 12.2, 12.3. What Counselor Bush and I are bringing to you today is a consideration to add a 12.4. Satisfactory performance increase, otherwise known as SPI. You may have also heard it referenced as STEPS. I think it was called STEPS, and then they, at some point, changed it to satisfactory performance increase. It basically all means the same thing. The language right here is as drafted by our city attorney. On the back of the page, we put together a, kind of just a one-page brief based on the conversation. It's on the back of,
They didn't come on the, that's it.
it should be in that folder.
Oh, yeah, I was waiting for the come pass out papers.
Oh, sorry. I thought it already
We'll take
happened.
it.
I'm sorry.
I was like, what are you talking about?
I'm so sorry. I gave it to Beth and I was like, when we get on it, I didn't realize she can't just wiggle her nose. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I'm going faster. We can go back just to the charter language then. Can we scroll up one? Here. There we go.
I've already got a couple.
Yeah.
Several copies.
So this item 12.4A through F does not exist in the charter right now, but if it were approved by us to go to the voters, it would basically follow the longevity section. So it's just a follow-on. Longevity, as we know, starts after year 3, currently goes to year 20. We're proposing to take it to 30. That is to reward people who stay in service. And as we know, these jobs are not things that you can just get out of college or get out of high school, go to the academy, train, and you're in for 3 to 5 years, and then you go somewhere else and we bring someone else in, right? These are career paths that we're asking people to stick to 5, 10, 15, maybe 30 or 40 years. And so, obviously, they have very strong collective bargaining units. They have a lot of protections at the state and local level for how those work, and none of this would usurp any of that. Adding SPI in now, if you'll look at the second page of this one-page brief. We're really approaching this from an annual fiscal impact and a retention approach. You should have received 2 documents. This other one is a study that we did last year for budgeting. Sorry, no, not yet. If you could scroll.
I can't see the documents that you're holding up.
Oh, you should have received one.
No, I mean,
No,
when you
she
say
was-
this one, I
Oh,
can't tell which
it's
one
this
you're.
one.
Okay.
The second page, okay. Y'all should be on a page that looks like this. And Counselor Bush, I just been on anytime if you want. And the chart you received was in our budget 2025. Was a report out on, we talked a lot about overtime for police and fire and containing costs and how we're budgeting and is it appropriate to use unexpended, unappropriated year-end fund balances to pay for overtime, all of those discussions. So this chart is something that you should have received before, but I'm just adding it to give context to this. Right now, we spend millions and millions of dollars on overtime. We are not at authorized strength. You can see we're down 130 positions in police from authorized strength, 12 from fire, and that it takes a good year to recruit and get people into the field, and that comes at a cost. If steps are not always offered, you can see at the 3 to 5 year mark of a new officer why they might jump out. And I really do want to put to context, Generation X and baby boomers and the greatest generation knew how to sign up for a job that was going to be a 10, 15, 20-year commitment. Millennials, and at this point, millennials are too old to even come in unless they're doing a transfer, I would
Gen
say,
Z
right?
and
We're
Alpha.
talking about Gen Z and Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha are kids who are in high school right now. So we're talking about this next generation of recruits. If we don't have a salary increase in those first 3 to 5 years, because it's negotiated away, I think we see attrition. Or they're going to nearby municipalities where they can get them. So SPI has been negotiated in a way, as I understand it, and certainly do your own research, but as I understand it, in a way that other municipalities in the state are not doing for our sworn personnel. It doesn't mean if this were approved, it's an automatic increase. It would be subject, obviously, to revenues and budget. But I think by codifying it in the charter, it also says this is a priority, and we're not going to say, there's monies, but there's all these other priorities we're trying to do, right? And it really comes from a stabilization of budget planning, but also personnel retention, and that's a statement at the bottom. The recommended action would be to put this to a vote of the people. I did crunch some numbers based on what we know. It would actually be a cost savings if we were fully staffed and not realizing all the overtime. It would also have impacts like repetitive use injury reduction and just mental health burnout and all those other things that we don't necessarily measure the same way. But we will always have overtime because we will always have disasters and things that cause pressure on this system. But right now, if we don't reverse trajectory, especially on the TPD staffing, we're gonna be in a worse place, not a better, and it's more expensive and costly across the gamut. Not just dollars and cents out of taxpayers' pockets, but to our mental health of our workers, to their physical health, to the things that we're asking them to do. So that's, as we were talking about longevity, how we got into this conversation. I don't know, Counselor Bish, if you wanted to add to it, but I know you've been really focused in on these retention and recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, this
as
has
well.
been a question for years, even back when I was at the Crime Commission,
Mm-hmm.
as when we laid off all the officers in the fire department and all that, so it's an ongoing issue. I appreciate the partnership with Counselor Decker Wright on this. One of the things that has come to the forefront is, and I know we don't like to hold future budgetary things incumbent, but making it subject to budgetary and appropriations. I know, again, going back to the state, you know, we have carve-outs. We have the 8-year plan for transportation, it's a carve-out. There was carve-out for education, there's carve-outs. Have we ever, and because I'm new, have we ever considered a carve-out, like, take that what-if statement out? And what does that look like, and is that something we can do?
I mean, I don't know, that's like a
I don't
legal
know.
discussion.
Yeah.
I just
Is that
think,
beyond this charter?
I just think every year that we're not in a cut budget, this basically holds our feet to the fire and says,
Per the charter.
yeah, the citizens voted, they want this, our biggest investment is public safety.
Yes.
And they want us to invest in public safety, should the dollars be there.
Yeah.
As you know, we sometimes go, oh, revenues are exceeding our expenses, or we have enough fund balance to try these new things and scale up new offices and add new employees and new programming. Some of us agree or disagree on, you know, how far away from our core functions those things can be in any area. But we know that public safety is a core function,
Yes.
probably
Yeah,
as,
that people expect us to
Right.
deliver.
that they expect us to deliver on.
Responsibility.
And if we continue to do what we've always done, which is negotiate these steps first, sometimes instead of last resort, I don't see these recruitment numbers turning around. And the other thing I just want to layer in, and maybe someone else can speak to it, there's a big class of people that are about to retire because of the changes at the state level. I don't know if that's 28 or 29, or if it's asynchronous between the two departments, but we'll be seeing some big turnover coming. That's gonna make these numbers bigger, not smaller.
You say departments, are you talking about police and fire?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, because of the pension.
Yeah.
the pension issues.
But I don't know if that's 2028 for both, or I think one's 28 and one's 29.
Do we have, sorry,
27.
Oh, great.
as a curiosity related to the fiscal impact, which, you know, I think it is one of those things where we know when we invest, especially in retention, it's cost saving ultimately.
Yeah.
Do we know, like, I always have a number in my head for, like, instance for my nonprofit where I'm like, hey, turnover costs us this much
Absolutely.
annually, when it takes it to, like, when we have to go recruit and bring someone else and there's like lost.
Yeah, if you'll
time.
look at the green,
Does it-
if you'll scroll down, Sarah, on the right-hand column, there's a little like pale green.
Yes, okay, that
Call
was-
out.
Yep.
And even if we just reduce attrition by 10 to 15 officers per year, we could avoid replacement costs. And then we're spending an incredible amount of money on overtime, and I'm not saying all overtime would go away, but it would certainly go a long way. Because you also, if you get more people in the pipeline, right, the overtime can be spread across people earning entry-level wages versus the top earners, depending on the assignment. So this is for your consideration today. We won't answer all the questions, but because we've kind of come into that window of like, it's time to put all the things into consideration on the table, we wanted to make sure you saw this. Obviously, it would be two separate questions. If we approve it for the voters will have a longevity question, an SBI question, but they would go into the same article. That goes to the next thing that Counselor Bush and I have been working on. We've been busy bees. We like this wonky stuff. And do you have that handout?
Yeah,
Sarah
I just
has.
have to find which one of these it is.
Yeah, Sarah has a handout. I'll just start talking as they kind of bring us into it. This is not the first time it's come to our table. For those of you who have gone through charter discussions, whether as an advocate or a counselor, it is a proposal to add counselor confirmation of department and division heads. And you'll see it on the screen, and I think there's a handout coming around.
Yes, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
have so many papers.
No, you're fine.
I remember the last time that this was on the
Yes,
table.
this came up before. Just to review, right now, there is a precedent for it because we have confirmation authority of the city auditor. No, I'm sorry. We have confirmation of the city attorney and the personnel director, which right now is our HR director. They're enumerated, personnel director is the enumeration in the charter. We also appoint the municipal judges. So it's not that the council's never had some sort of authority. This would be an expansion of that authority to department and division heads. If you'll look on the second page, you'll see the proposed language. And you'll also see an organizational chart mock-up that staff put together for illustration purposes to just understand the difference between a division head and a department head. Those things have changed.
Yes.
with administrations. And so we thought it was important to include both, because depending on how we reorg, it could be, you know, a division head in one administration becomes a department head in the next administration, or vice versa. It really is just confirming by a majority of council, these very forward-facing, often big department budget folks. And it, really what it is, it's not to consolidate power for counselors, it's to give voice to the public, to also have a say, you know.
I like it.
So,
This was, and I will back up, it was, to your point, it wasn't giving us more power or authority, but working more in conjunction. We, the people elect us to be their voice. So when people start saying, well, we don't have a say, this gives us the opportunity to have that say.
and you'll see other legislative and executive branches that have this kind of confirm and consent approach. It's not radical, it's just not something that we've had to this level.
Well, I think I see what you're saying from the perspective of, like, these are the people who are receiving ultimately the services that these departments are providing. And so I think that's, makes sense as an extra layer. I'm curious, just kind of procedurally, so if someone's internal and pursuing a promotion that would make them the head of a department, then like this would be a final step of a process? Is that, maybe that's a question for Lee. I was just trying to think through, so it's kind of like their interview process becomes like.
They still have to be qualified by the
By the
personnel
HR
director.
right.
Right, the internal applicant.
If they're civil service.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's if they're civil service, they would go through those kinds of, whether external or internal, like they're applying, they're going through those steps, and then this would be the last thing that happens.
The mayor would make the appointment,
Okay,
the designation. If they were a civil service, they would be certified. The mayor would make the appointment, then it would come to the council for a confirmation vote.
okay. And then, and then if there's,
Yes.
and then if there's a, like any type of reorg,
We have to vote on that anyway.
we'd have to vote on the reorg, but that then might be, I'm just trying to, so if there's a reorg and it shifts people or departments or whatever it is, if there's a new department or what have you, we would both be voting on that reorg side of things and then also those appointments separately. I'm just making sure, I'm just thinking through the procedure
Like there
there.
are separate provisions for
Yeah.
Right.
approving creation or abolition of divisions. That's a different section of the charter. So if someone is moved into, appointed or designated as a division head, that would be subject to confirmation. Departments can be shifted and the personnel may not change, so you wouldn't necessarily approve a new department head unless there was one. But
Okay.
Yeah.
Which you can think back over the last 8-10 years where that's come up. And I will say, as a counselor who's been here that long, and Counselor Hall-Harper, I wish Counselor Lincoln was here for this because I'm sure he's heard too. We do get those calls. And people have strong opinions about it, and our answer is like, well, you have no say. The only thing we have a say on is you can reorganize. So it has come up, like I said, this came up some time ago. I didn't get past the council at the time. It's always a good idea to look back and say, is it still relevant? I think Counselor Bush and I thought it was, because of the level that our constituents are involved in local, like what we're doing.
Yeah.
They're paying attention in a way, and I think part of that is, right, everything's live streamed, it's in their pocket, they can dial it up in a way that maybe before, if you didn't have cable TV
Right.
and home at noon to watch it, you didn't know.
Well, and I think we all know from this being SMALSA, we're, you know, when you're in the grocery store, everyone knows who everybody is.
Absolutely. That's right.
These are familiar faces.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, that answered my,
Okay,
I was just curious.
so that's that one again.
Yeah.
This today is like, this is for you to chew on.
I
Right.
will also say the staff helped with some research and other cities have done this. And if you think about it, at the state level, the Senate has to approve things that the governor does. So it's not
And at the
anything
federal level
different
too.
at the federal level.
But we've
There's
seen
a
them also
whole-
cede appointing things over time to the governor as well.
Sure.
And that's gone swimmingly.
Yeah.
I know,
But this
No,
would
I'm
be
kidding, that's been
in
bad, so
the
this makes
charter.
sense, yeah.
checks and balances.
If we approve it to go on a
That's what I
ballot,
just said.
yeah, if we approve it to go on a ballot, then the citizens get to decide in August. So those are the two that Counselor Bush and I worked on, and because I'm a nerdy wonk
And
on
you have
just
one more?
charter, Counselor Hall Harper and I
Yep.
have brought to you again.
Continuing public safety.
Pass out,
Yes.
please.
Thank you.
We'll have
Because
her
this
pass out.
stands between us and lunch.
I know. And again, this is not for a big debate or whatever today. It's just to reintroduce the concept. It's already been reintroduced by constituents who have organized to come and speak to us repeatedly, so it should not be a surprise, and if it is, I guess you weren't listening. So, in front of you, you should have 3 documents. The first one with this dark title, Independent Review and Oversight of Public Safety. The actual charter language. If you remember, we had a similar proposal a couple years ago. This is similar but different, and we're about to talk about why. And then you'll have a bigger paper that looks like this. It's just kind of an infographic of the first item. So, independent review and oversight's been an ongoing topic, not only in our community, but across the country. In our community specifically, the former Mayor Bynum brought forward an ordinance proposal in 2019 that Councilor Lakin, myself, Councilor Hall Harper, and then Councilor McKee had worked to draft. It went through a process that started with seating a budget item in a budget retreat and then ordinance discussions. Ultimately, there was not enough consensus of that council to move it forward, so Mayor Bynum pulled it back. Then we went through 2020, and you'll remember all the things about 2020 if you haven't blocked them out of your mind. And so the conversation continued. At that time, Councilor Hall Harper brought forward a charter amendment proposal, in large part because of the community saying, if you're not going to do an ordinance and the mayor's not going to do an executive order, then the charter is the next place to look. We know that charter amendments can come from this body, or citizens can organize a petition initiative. So I just, for those of you who are newer to this, right, there can be an executive order, an ordinance, charter amendment, and this is one pathway. The charter amendment before you right now is about all of public safety. And it really changes the conversation based on, I think, feedback that we've received as counselors, right? How many times have we had somebody before us saying a code enforcement official did a thing? Or an animal control officer did a thing? Or we know we've seen lawsuits that the fire department has had to settle because of gender bias or other things. So I really, for me, is a conversation around public safety is our greatest investment, and it's the greatest, it's in our oath to protect the health, safety, and welfare of citizens. And so it makes sense that we look at all of it and provide a review and oversight entity where these citizens can go to, where it's not gatekept by an elected official, right? Because not everyone voted for me. So there could be somebody in my community that's not going to approach me because of who I am. They would have this place, neutral place to go. So it's really about that. We have a public safety commissioner by appointment right now. That's not a civil service position. But right now, we as a city are saying that commissioner's over police, fire, including dispatch, animal control, and the municipal court. I think we've argued that code enforcement is also public safety, right? And so that's gonna be in here. Emergency management, just anything that keeps our city safer would go into this, that would go into this review and oversight. And obviously, if it's a charter amendment, we have to make it as evergreen as possible, so getting into like what it's called today, we used to call it working in neighborhoods, it's ultimately code enforcement. So, it would establish a director of a department and a civilian oversight board. The charter would outline how those entities are put into place. Anything that involves, obviously, deadly force and custody deaths, which we just had, unfortunately, a report today drop in the Frontier about our municipal lockup. So I'm sure you'll be hearing about that if you haven't already. Any incident where someone dies during a public safety operation, and complaints involving public safety employees, and situations where a public safety employee has been investigated for a felony or violent offense, whether duty related or not. And when we say public safety employee, we're talking about like what I just said, code enforcement, municipal court, prosecutors, all those things that have come up over the years where, I'll just say as a city councilor, if somebody approaches me because they felt like a code enforcement official was heavy-handed, the only recourse I have is to kind of pass it along and hope something comes of it. But I have a very hard time even going back to that constituent and letting them know what has come of that situation. This would mitigate all of that. And I think every month we get reports from a sales tax overview committee, because sales tax, capital is something that should be monitored closely. They meet monthly, they have subcommittees, they give us monthly reports, they publish monthly reports on the website, and we don't have anything close to that as it relates to this. So it's not, it's something that we already do, we just haven't done it in this way. I will turn it over to Councilor Hall Harper, but I just wanted to kind of give you this high level fast track, because I know some of you have not been as involved in this, or maybe have been involved when it was different iterations. So I wanted to kind of emphasize what it is and what it isn't. And this one-page graphic also just kind of highlights that. So there's no disciplinary powers. There would be Tulsa residents on the civilian oversight board that would be working with the director. They're putting it in the charter means it's not subject to an administration or the comings and goings of the political side of it. It would just let the citizens decide, do they value this? We've had, I think, more people come speak to us in the public realm on this issue than maybe anything else I can think of. And I've been here 8 years. So, and the final thing I'll say, the settlements that we've all had to vote on recently show the financial risk to the city if things go unchecked. And so having a third party entity of citizens doing that work, and one of the big nuances besides just broadening it to all concepts of public safety departments and employees is that the council and the auditor are included in this language now in a way that wasn't before. Because I do think the auditor needs to look at things, and I do think we need to look at things. And right now, we ask the question, what policies have changed, and oftentimes we don't have an answer, or what training has changed. And so I just think it shines light on all aspects and holds all 11 elected officials of the city of Tulsa to account for making sure that when things don't go the way they should, we actually look at it and we actually make changes so that we're not just continuing 10, 20, 30 years down the line using tax dollars like this. Councilor Hall.
You pretty much hit it all, but I just want to highlight a couple of things. But I do think it's very important as we talk about long-term accountability, transparency, and again, as you just mentioned, the fiscal stewardship that's necessary. In my mind, we're going to say, okay, we need to make sure that we are taking care of our public safety officers financially, and rightly so, pay-wise. But to me, this is a natural connection with that. Because that's the questions I'm going to get. Why should we continue to do this, right? Longevity and satisfactory when we don't feel like we have accurate oversight and input, and to know that things are being addressed. Again, we've just paid out more in the last 4 months in lawsuits than we have, and certainly in my 10 years of being on this council. And so I think, again, it is a natural connection. I think it's logical. I think it makes sense. I think one justifies the other. And I do, I'm very much in support of it not just being one department, but rather public safety as a whole. We've talked about that consistently on several levels. But public safety, it's about, if we wanting people to come, wanting people to stay in the city. Public safety is key to that. And so I would add just that public trust is important. And placing independent oversight in the charter demonstrates a commitment to transparency, that transparency and that trust and accountability. And so there's a lot of information there. Certainly welcome any questions or additions, discussions. But we wanted to put it out there. And I think this is a way to get us to where we need to be on both sides of taking care of all of our public safety. I've shared at this table before, I teach at TCC, and I'm teaching the juniors, seniors, but also the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old generation. And I ask the question, I think it's chapter 10, every time, who in here is interested in public service? Working for our local, whether it's the city, county, state, whatever. And it's just not a lot of response. There's very little interest, so we think we're having problems now about filling academies and keeping our city staffed. It's going to get worse. And I think this is something, because because they know what I do, so they're like, I don't want to sound like, no, this isn't, you're not getting graded for it. All right, just be honest. Why? And so some of them will say the money. I'll say, okay, well, how much would you want to make? Right? And then they'll burst out like, well, that's about what they make. And I was like, oh, okay, so what's the reason now? And oftentimes it boils down to just a lack of respect for the professions.
And trust.
And trust.
And trust.
And trustworthiness. They're saying, I wouldn't want to be a part or a member of that profession because of what I see.
The final,
We have to
yeah.
address that.
The final thing I'll add, as we've been on this journey, at least since 2018, 2019, I know certain parts of the community have been talking about it a lot longer
Yes.
and demanding it a lot longer. Oklahoma City and Sand Springs have a similar structure. So it's not like Tulsa would be leading the way in our state. But I would say we should lead the way in our community, in our MSA, as we talk about economic development, growth, and all of those things. People want to feel safe. We just heard that. And this is part of it too, is that trust and accountability. If you haven't already, I would recommend you look at the trust and accountability report that the council provided. There was also a data collection report, and then of course the fines and fees is what we've heard about the most, because that's what's received the most funding. But they're on the council website, and if you don't know how to get them, I'm sure your aide could point you out where to go. But that was the #1 recommendation, was independent oversight and civilian, as a committee as part of that, because, right, just hiring one office of professionals doesn't bring that full trust and accountability piece from the public, and that's ultimately what we're doing, is trying to say, we're stewarding your dollars. Things happen. We're not saying it won't, but we should be able to say, when things happen, we confirm it was all investigated internally properly. If it was out of policy, these are the policy recommendations. If it was in policy, but it's not aligned to best practices, these are the changes. And right now, there's not really a formalized structure for how that happens as it pertains to all of this. I've talked a lot about dispatch. We still have data requests that we have not received, and we're going on several months now. Several months. You were pregnant when you made the request, so.
Yeah, I have,
Yeah.
let me add, I have a little line going, I'll just tap
Just
in.
real quick,
Oh,
can
yeah.
we get Oklahoma City and Sand Springs, see what they did, how they did
Yeah,
it?
Yeah, we
share.
have, like,
That'd
we
be
did
great.
visit with Sand Springs before. Oklahoma City's is 2024, but we can bring that.
Yeah.
If you could
Yeah.
send that to us, I'd like to
that'd be
just see
really
what they've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do want to tack on that what you voiced
Yeah.
happening with your students at TCC. I saw with my students at Hale, which is why 10 years ago, that's how I first got involved even in city government at all, was from being like, how do we help build trust when the kids were like, wouldn't even approach when they had authentic safety issues. I mean, I did want to flag, this is something that I was so helpful that CBD sat down with me about a few weeks ago. There was an incident on South Side downtown, the video of it went viral. I had people ask some really serious questions. They had real concerns about protocol, concerns about racism, and TPD spent time sitting down with me to go over the footage and show how everything had really played out and what was done to code, which is a lot of the time what has happened, and they were able to dispel that with me so I could go back to my constituents and share that. And I think to me what I'm hearing is this just helps across all public safety entities formalize that process so that that's more of like the norm, because then I got to go, hey, I sat down for 2 hours and looked at all of this with TPD, and they did this stuff by the book, and I understand why this could have come across this way. It was a tough situation, but I'm glad they sat down with me, and I want other people to get to have that as a formalized experience to maintain that trust that you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, I
And
have.
it's gonna happen
Yeah.
from administration to administration.
Yep.
From council to council. You're
Yep.
not gonna be here forever.
Yeah.
But it's a strong.
Well, and also, per your point, if someone doesn't necessarily trust
me as their city councilor, I want there to be something else that they can trust, because
Yeah.
we all have,
They
everyone
don't
has.
trust us.
Trust us.
Are you best friends with all your constituents?
Yes.
We do
I mean, aren't we all? Okay, I have, Archie, Dudden, and Bengal. But we can,
Sure, no, thank you.
And we can bring this back.
Yes.
Again, I think we have to get to an April 15th moment, so we can put this back on.
Okay, well then I'll be very quick. I agree, training and transparency is critical, and something has to be done, whether it's this or something else, because I get the calls as well. I'm very concerned about the settlements. There are probably more to come. So, Section 4, it talks about who runs the office. I'm going to tie in what's written here with the last proposed amendment. So it says the director is appointed by the mayor, so it's a department director, from the mayor, from a short list of candidates, vetted by a 6-member screening committee that includes, a number of people.
Which is also in the charter language.
That-
If you want to dig into it.
Right. That part, so let's say that this passes and then your previous, that person would have to come and be confirmed by, okay. I'm just trying to layer it all together.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
okay, and then I have Dudden and Bengal.
So, I know in 2017, we had the equality indicators. That is what prompted all of this to come forward. I've been keeping track of that. But also, the fact that this is for public safety. Police officers are also public citizens. And so I think this is all encompassing in what Councilor Hall Harper said, and the fact that this would empower the public and our constituents to actually be a part of a creative and collaborative effort to be able to produce something that is going to be beneficial to the city as a whole. So I'm really excited to read what this has gone through, that we're gonna bring it back for
In a
further
different way.
discussion. Right. Well, I mean,
I mean,
to the point of constituents, 45.5 thousand people that we represent are not always going to share our view, but this gives them the opportunity
outside of us.
to outside of our purview, to come in and be involved and actually have a voice and be, empowered by that. So I think that's imperative. Independent.
All right, I have the chair now. Counselor Bangle, yes.
Yeah, so on your comparative or your graphic here about the settlements, wouldn't you shift your 2020s to the 1990s since those cases revolved around that specific era?
No, so just thank you for that question.
Because I want to be careful
this
about
is-
how we represent the numbers.
So I'm representing the numbers when we had to authorize the dollars
Right, I
that
got
then
that.
taxpayers are paying out of their pocket.
What would but comparatively, what would that have looked like in the 1990s if we had settled those cases versus today?
They
That's what I
didn't even
said.
come forward.
I know, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
So I'm doing a deeper dive on sinking fund that we should bring you a report on. I think we're going back to 25 years, 26 years. Because as you know, some of these settlements are paid out over time.
Right.
Right. We get sinking fund reports, but I don't think we've done this comprehensive look. The other thing I want to be very careful about when we talk about settlements, there's kind of this attitude that it's a one-off and it's unfortunate, but we just got to take care of it and move on. When you see the cumulative impact, the other thing is, right, it's like, well, it just comes out of ad valorem. What we've done right now, $145 per property. We don't have enough dollars. So I want us to be very careful, kind of when we're like, our hands are tied, we have to do the right thing, we went through the process, that there's no lasting impact. And I feel like sometimes that's been the approach, it's the cost of doing business. And there's all manner of sinking fund settlements, whether it's workers' comp or whatever. But when it comes to these things related to, this one has, the big ones that we've done, that also sets a precedent for future. But, you know, when the fire department had their lawsuit for $500,000, like, these are things that if we don't see changes, we're just gonna say, we'll just pay out when people can bring it through to a lawsuit. I just don't think that's the way we should be stewarding taxpayer dollars.
Do we also have a comparative outside of public safety, like for tort claims?
We could.
Do we have a comparative?
So we have
what
all the
paid
sinking
over the
funds.
same period outside of public safety? Because I think it's fair when we make comparisons, right?
Sure.
We're talking about stewardship of tax dollars, where.
I'm
you
sure
know,
Jack could send you the sinking fund
Yeah,
reports.
I'm kind of curious about the comparative.
I will say for
And you gotta
our,
delve into them, because it's not clear.
yeah, for our research.
That's what I'm saying, so
Sinking-
outside of
sinking-
public
I'm
safety,
talking about the
what
report
other,
itself.
Oh, I mean, there's all,
you
you
know,
know,
payouts
car
are we making?
accidents and
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
water line breaks that damage people's property,
Properties, yeah.
all that kind of stuff. But for our purposes on the sinking fund analysis that we're looking at, it is related to those 1983 cases,
Yeah.
which are the federal court. So we should have that report soon, and we will be bringing back.
And policies and policing change over time.
Absolutely.
You know, today, or previously in the nineties, early 2000s, you had, in the police cars, you had a recorder in the back seat and a camera in the front.
Sure.
And as soon as they hit that siren lights and siren switch on their siren, it would trigger the camera, right? Those were crappy, to be fair. And now we have body cams.
Sure,
so
and
now
Arctic.
they're-
And
yeah,
that's the other thing I
exactly.
just
So
do wanna say, when.
Policing has changed a
It
lot.
has, and when
Different.
Arctic went in, there was town halls, where there was a talk about transparency and accountability. I don't see that happening yet, and that's why we'll bring back that report, cause we did an analysis of dozen plus cities. The ones that have real-time information centers have some level of review and oversight. We're like one of the only ones that doesn't. And so I just think as we are asking citizens to trust us with surveillance, that we have to have this other piece of it. Most of the time, it's gonna be like Counselor Bella said, I thought I saw something that wasn't right, I'm coming to you to learn about it, we go through it, and they walk through and explain, nope, that's how it goes, or that's how it is, or, you know, we even hear about, well, they came on my property, you know, code enforcement's like, well, they have jurisdiction to do that, you know, sometimes it's an educative process, but it would exist outside of just the one-offs of who approaches us. And it would put us in a position to not be so reactive to when it's a lawsuit, right? We could get upstream of these things. So we can talk about it again. We can have a dedicated discussion on Public Works or UED. I'm sure they'll be hearing from the your community members and other stakeholders. And so we just wanted to get these on the table, the two that Counselor Bush and I brought, and then this one, because now we have, unless.
Yeah, about 3.
We have 3.
Yeah.
Right, but 4 total, unless there's something else in the works that I don't know about, but 4 charter amendment proposals.
And then one wild card. No, I'm
Well,
kidding,
I
there's
didn't
not
know
another
if
one.
any of you all are working on something but I think the window for kind of putting it on the table is closing.
Yeah, 4 serious ones, 1 silly one.
Yes, so, okay.
I'm kidding.
Thank you to Jack and to Sarah
All
and the
right.
staff for their help too.
Is there anything else on this one?
There-
Okay, we're on, hey, if we had had a 2:30, we could have spread some of this out.
We don't have a 2:30?
I'm happy to talk to you all about
Okay.
schedules,
I
but
know.
that was not possible today.
I understand. Okay, we're on, just checking. It's okay, hey, you know, we put everything into one day because a lot of us have other
Well,
jobs
so-
and it
well,
causes this sometimes.
well,
But
let
you have
me-
one last thing
let-
on this
Yeah,
item.
well, just because we don't have a 2:30. So Sarah,
Well, we have a 1 o'clock and it's 1 o'clock.
and it's 1
So
o'clock
please
right now.
table, I'm gonna actually just go, please table or talk about it offline because we gotta
Because
do
we have
it.
number 8
You all are
still.
welcome to continue this meeting till 3 o'clock. You do have the legal ability.
We
to
could do
Oh,
that.
I will
I
do
wanna
that.
honor that we have a 1 o'clock and it's 1 o'clock now. Is this a burning?
I'll talk to Sarah about it.
Okay, all right. Real quick, agenda item 8, travel authorization per council rules and order of business for Councilor Hall Harper to travel to Washington DC for the Chamber of One Voice Washington DC fly-in for $3,400. This is for registration, hotel, and per diem.
The only question I had is last week when we talked about it, did we have 3 or 4 already gone?
Yeah, who else?
There's some back outs.
No, Counselor Paul Harper is going, I think if Counselor Bush is going, it's not going through the city
No,
process.
that's for quorum, is what I'm
And so,
thinking.
just 2 counselors
Oh, okay.
attending.
So we still have quorum.
All right.
Thanks. Otherwise, let me
Any,
know.
oh, good point. Okay. Anything else on this one? All right, we are adjourned.